Hey guys, how are you all? Welcome back to my channel. If you enjoy, then please like, share and do comments. 5 years ago at the night of October 10th in a village known as Konoha, a beast of unimaginable power attacked the village, killing both the guilty and innocent alike. This was the Kyuubi no Kitsune, the ninth and strongest Biju to exist in the entire elemental nations. However, despite this, the Biju were nothing but fragments of the god beast known as the Jubi. Even if it was just a fragment of the god beast, the strongest of shinobi of Konoha were not even able to make a scratch on it, even with jutsus that could destroy entire armies and level landscapes. The only one who was able to truly fight back was the Yondaime Hokage Minato Namikaze. Despite this, he knew that he could not win against the Kyuubi, and even if he did, the Biju are eternal, so a lucky killing blow would be useless. There was only one way to defeat it. He needed to seal the beast into a human being, thus creating a Jinchuriki, a fate that most agreed was worse than death. However, that raised two problems. 1. The host needed to be a newborn baby due to them having underdeveloped chakra pathways, thus allowing the Biju chakra to safely flow into the body without interference, and 2. Only an Uzumaki can host the Kyuubi due to their strong life force. Fortunately, Uzumaki triplets were born that very night, 2 girls and a boy. Unfortunately for the Yondaime, they were his own children. Feeling he had no choice, as in order to be a Kage one must put the importance of their village first and foremost, he was prepared to seal the beast away. However, due to its massive power, it would still be impossible to seal the entirety of the beast into one host. So he had no choice but to use the Shikifujin, a technique that allows the user to summon the Shinigami herself and seal the target into just about anything, even splitting the target into numerous pieces if need be, at the cost of the user's life. However, it was not the Yondaime who sealed the Kyuubi. The Sandaime, the previous Hokage, decided to sacrifice his own life by invoking the Shikifujin, separating the Kyuubi into 3 parts. The Yang chakra for the older sister, the Yin chakra for the younger sister, and the soul for the youngest brother. Victory over the Kyuubi, the villagers celebrated. Announcing the status of his children, the villagers and shinobi praised the 2 sisters as heroes. With all the praise and happiness, not once did the Yondaime notice the hatred that was aimed at his only son, something that will soon cause him and his family great loss and despair. 5 years after Kyuubi attack, Namikaze Uzumaki estates. Laying on the soft grass relaxing while deep in his thoughts was the youngest sibling of the Yondaime, Naruto Namikaze Uzumaki. Despite being a boy, he was quite feminine looking, to the point of often being mistaken for a girl, even if his crimson hair was cut short. Naruto Nissan. Naruto opened his violet eyes looking at the direction of the voices and smiled happily. The 2 running towards him were his 2 older twin sisters, Mito, the oldest one, and Natsumi, the second oldest. Mito, like Naruto, inherited their mother's red hair and violet eyes, while Natsumi, however, inherited her father's blonde hair and blue eyes. The 2 hugged him, causing them to roll around the ground a bit till they stopped with the 2 sisters on top of him. The 3 laughed. "Nay, Mito-chan, Na-chan, do you want to see a cool trick?" The 2 girls nodded their heads eagerly. Getting off him, Naruto grabbed a fallen leaf. Placing it on his lips, he blew. A beautiful sound came out of it, which quickly a beautiful song. The girls were completely enraptured by the song, not even noticing that they were not the only audience listening in. Kushina Namikaze Uzumaki, a beautiful woman with red hair and violet eyes along with a slender yet filling frame that makes most women green with envy, came out the estate and was about call out her children for lunch, till she heard the song. The song was beautiful, somehow combing 2 opposite emotions together, happiness and sadness together. Yet it was predominantly happiness. She was surprised. She had no idea her son was this talented, though she couldn't help but feel a sense of pride for Naruto. The song ended and the 2 sisters were clapping their hands. Kushina chuckled a bit before making her presence known. "Kids, it's time to come back in. Wouldn't want my little babies to continue the day on an empty stomach now, would we?" "Ka-chan." The 3 cried out embarrassingly, yet they still had smiles full of warmth and love. They got off from their sitting positions and quickly ran towards their mother. As he was running, Naruto couldn't help but wish that this happiness will last forever. As Kushina grabbed her children in a hug, any person who would witness this would think that they were the perfect happy family. Unfortunately, they would never know how sometime in the future a tragedy will strike that would forever break this family apart. The leaf Naruto played turned red before dissolving into red dust. How long has it been like this? It's been almost 2 years since this all started. Naruto looked out the window seeing his 2 older sisters training with their parents, enjoying the time the 4 were spending together. He didn't change much physically other than his hair now reaching his waist, which made him look all the more feminine. All he could do was watch. His eyes, what were once filled childish joy and innocence, were now filled with nothing but despair. He didn't know specifically when it started or even how. It was slow and subtle to the point that he honestly didn't notice it, thinking that his parents were just being forgetful. However, it simply got worse for him when his sisters started acting the same. It became worse and worse till one incident happened that made him realize just how much his family truly didn't care for him. It was during the Fox Festival where people celebrated Sarutobi Hiruzen's sacrifice for the village and the birth of the twin heroes. He barely received any gifts while his sisters were spoiled silly. While they were out walking the streets, some villager threw a rock at his head which caused him to fall on a pile of mud. At first his parents were quite angry and confronted the villager that practically attacked him. He had no idea how the conversation went due to him feeling hurt at the fact that instead of being concerned, his sisters instead found the whole thing funny. His parents came back, however, instead of being concerned they simply scolded him for making a mess of his yukata. No one except for Naruto noticed how the villager was giving him a smug smile. That was the day he realized that he longer mattered to his own family. Getting out of his depressing thoughts, Naruto quietly snuck out of the compound. Though they seemingly don't care about him, they always seem to scold him harshly for going out on his own, though he had no idea why. Simply walking down the streets he ignored the glares and hateful remarks he received from the villagers. Other than a few rare incidents where a villager would try to physically assault him, they pretty much completely ignore his entire existence, pretending that there were only ever 2 children of the Yondaime Hokage. In all honesty, he did not care anymore, as nothing is more painful than having his existence ignored by his own family. Anyway, as Naruto was heading towards the park, he was met by a curious sight. A small girl around his age, if not younger, with short blue hair, was quite cute in his opinion, and had featureless lavender eyes. A Hyuga. In all honesty, the Hyugas were perhaps the only clan, no, the only people that did not ignore his existence. Something that made him grateful. However, he did not hang out with their children due to the fact that clan children tend to be more isolated, for lack of a better word, than civilian children, and also because he chose not to. So this was the first time he saw one, and he has to admit that she's pretty cute and will most likely be a heartbreaker when she gets older. He was about to go off until he saw a group of older kids, all of them boys, harassing the little Hyuga girl. On different circumstances he would ignore this and walk away. However, when he looked deeper into the girl's eyes, he saw something in there, something familiar. Pain and loneliness. 2 emotions that shouldn't be there in a young girl like her. 2 emotions that should only appear on orphans. 2 emotions that should only appear in his eyes. He wanted to know why she was like that and how to make it disappear. He approached the group, using his body to block their view of the Hyuga girl. "Hey, what are you doing? Yeah, can't you see we're just trying to teach this little arrogant Hyuga a lesson in humility?" Naruto turned his head slightly to look at the Hyuga girl and noticed that she was looking at him with worry and concern, basically telling him to save himself. They were not the eyes of arrogance but the eyes of a humble, selfless person. He turned back to the bullies. "So are you going to get out of the way, or are we gonna have to?" With speed that was above average compared to that of a civilian, he punched the bully hard in the gut, causing him collapse on the ground and pass out from the pain. The others were stunned by this, and as such they were easy pickings for him. See, even though he was never trained, he was still able to watch. He has what people call photographic memory, so he was able to memorize the entire movements of his parents' fighting style. With his memories he trained himself as much as he can. Compared to the clan children he was laughably weak, however compared to the civilian children, he was way out of their league. At the end all of them were beaten to the ground, with Naruto being only slightly winded. The Hyuga approached him slowly. "Ito, are you okay?" Naruto was looking at her with slight bewilderment at the fact that she was asking that, despite the fact that it wasn't him that was hurt from this one-sided beatdown. "I'm fine, don't worry. What about you?" "I'm fine, thank you very much." She stuttered a bit and looked embarrassed from his concern. Cute. Naruto couldn't help but think that. I'm sorry you had to jump in like that, it's just that I'm so weak. He noticed how sad she was at the end. Feeling sympathy, he patted her head softly, stunning her a bit before her entire face became as red as his face. Don't worry. It doesn't matter if you were weak or strong. I still would have helped you. After all, you can be the strongest, and yet being the strongest will not take away someone's pain. Arigato, she said quietly with a small smile. Hinata-sama, it is time to return. A Hyuga called out to her. Hinata, huh? The now named Hinata nodded her head in confirmation. Well, I guess this is where we part ways. Naruto started to leave. Wait, may I know your name? He turned to look at her. Name's Naruto, I hope we can get along from now on. He once more went on his own way. Naruto? Naruto unknowingly gained an admirer today whose feelings for him will only grow stronger each passing day. A woman was seen walking through the village, simply enjoying the bright sunny day. A body that can contend with kunoichi like Kushina, long silky black, and warm black eyes Makoto Uchiha was considered one of the most desirable women of Konoha, if not all of Fire Country, along with her best friend Kushina Namikaze Uzumaki and Tsunade Senju. On an unrelated note, she also happens to be the godmother of Naruto Uzumaki. She sighed a bit. I really haven't spent much time with them, have I? She had noticed that ever since the Kyuubi attack, she hadn't hung out with Kushina and her family that much, well, more like barely. The Uchiha clan had been too busy fixing their clan homes as well as keeping order with the civilians that they barely had any time for themselves. Though just recently clan members such as her and the other wives were now able to spend time for themselves. Thinking about her status, she sighed a bit in depression. Don't get her wrong, she did not regret ever giving birth to her children and she loves her husband Fugaku. It's just the fact that she's not in love with him. The marriage was arranged, which is very common among clans. So like most female clan members, they never have the chance to truly find someone to truly fall in love with. Fugaku surprisingly feels the same way. As such, she was still happy, though not as happy as she should be. She was snapped out her depressing thoughts when she heard something. A beautiful yet sad song that seemingly just captures the soul of anyone that listens to it. She followed the song to the source in an almost hypnotic way. She didn't care about all the people who got in the way, simply just shoving those who did and ignoring their shouts of annoyance. When she finally found it, she was surprised that the beautiful song came from a red-haired child blowing on a leaf. At first glance she thought it was Mito, however after a careful look she realized it was Naruto, seeing the few and, under normal circumstances, unnoticeable differences he had compared to Mito. All she did was continue to stand there and listen to him play his leaf whistle, him not being aware of her presence. The song ended, much to her disappointment, and he finally noticed her presence, startling him a bit. Gomen, I didn't mean to scare you like that. She found his reaction to be quite cute, made more adorable with his girly looks. It's all right, miss. Makoto Uchiha. The two simply stared at each other, one with awkwardness while the other with curiosity and slight amusement. You know it's considered customary to also introduce yourself, you know. Instantly Naruto grew red in embarrassment. It took all her power not to hug him while shouting out, kawaii. Alright, sorry. My name is Naruto, just Naruto. Makoto was greatly surprised hearing him seemingly introduce himself in a way that made him sound like an orphan. Naruto-kun, is there a reason why you made no mention of your last name? He stiffened a bit and looked away from her. I'd rather not talk about it. Makoto knew when she was overstepping her bounds and decided not to further pursue the subject any further. Anyo, Miss Uchiha, you can just call me Makoto. I never like these formalities anyway. Alright, sorry Makoto-sama. She sighed in exasperation. Perhaps she shouldn't have mentioned being an Uchiha, though too late now and she couldn't use the godmother excuse since this was the first time they met. What exactly are you doing out here alone? Nothing much really, I simply decided to go out for some fresh air. Just as she was about to leave she stopped and turned to look back at Naruto. You know I wouldn't mind the company at all, Naruto-kun. Really? Yes, I don't see a problem with it at all. Looking back into that memory, Makoto wouldn't have changed a thing despite the pain she would go through because of this. Come on, almost there. Naruto could be seen walking on water and was already close to reaching the other side of the pond. Thanks to some advice from Hinata as well as a bit of training from Makoto, he was able to unlock his chakra and utilize it for his training. He smiled a bit thinking about his first friend and the woman who was more of mother to him than his own birth mother ever was. Though his life was bit better, hell, he even made 2 more friends who happened to be orphans and knew the pains of loneliness like him. It still wasn't enough to get him out of depression. His so-called parents have continued to ignore him while spoiling his sisters rotten. His sisters were a different type of problem entirely. Once upon a time the two adored him to the point of outright lashing out at any female that wasn't their mother who tried to get close to Naruto. However, now was a different story. Ever since the two have been receiving training from their parents, things have changed. They don't purposely ignore his existence like the villagers, but they still do it anyway. Ever since their parents focused all their attention on them, they've steadily grown apart from each other. Eventually it grew to the point that he could no longer call them his sisters and he could no longer call himself their brother. "What are you doing?" Startled, Naruto lost concentration and took an unwilling dive into the water. Coming, Naruto noticed that it was Mito and Narumi who interrupted his training. Naruto, not wanting to be close to them, swam to the other side. Mito and Narumi were staring at him with an emotionless and, in Mito's case, uncaring look. However, in the inside they were greatly surprised seeing Naruto doing the water walking exercise and almost succeeded. The two were fully aware about how bad the relations between them were. It has been like that ever since their parents decided to jumpstart on their training. However, unlike Naruto, they were aware of the true reason behind this. Unlike the previous Jinchurikis before them, their seals were not meant to suppress the fox's chakra. Even though Hiruzen used the Shiki Fujin to seal away the fox's chakra into the twins, Minato ended up using Hake no Fuin Shiki to complete the sealing. The Hake no Fuin Shiki is a seal that allows the chakra of the Biju to leak into the host's body so they could utilize its power. Therein lies the problem. These type of seals were never meant to last, as because of this leakage the seal will gradually weaken over time until it will finally breaks. The Shiki Fujin, however, prevents the Hake no Fuin Shiki from actually breaking, which means the twins were safe. Though that didn't stop Kushina from beating the crap out of Minato when he first told her the type of seal he used to finish the job. Even if the seal wouldn't break, it still presented a problem. It would not stop the Kyuubi's chakra from influencing the girls. The Kyuubi is a being that's practically the physical manifestation of hate itself. A hatred so great that even its chakra was saturated with it, which was why Mito and Kushina had top quality seals that completely and utterly suppressed the Kyuubi in its entirety. Neither Mito nor Narumi had those type of seals, and they also have not inherited their mother's Kongo Fuso, which could suppress the chakra of a Biju. This of course greatly frightened Kushina and Minato when he realized the mistake of using such a seal. In such they decided to kickstart on their training for chakra and emotional control so they could better utilize the Kyuubi's chakra without going berserk. Since Naruto only had the soul, there was nothing to weaken the seal or influence him. Mito and Narumi accidentally heard all this one time by accident when Jiraiya the Toad Sage briefly came over for a visit to discuss something important with their parents. The two finally understood why their parents treated Naruto the way they did, at least half of it. As such, though they didn't like it, they accepted their reasoning and put all their focus on their training so they wouldn't go out of control and possibly hurt their dear brother. Of course, what no one realized was that it was forever impossible for the girls to ever gain control of the chakra of the Kyuubi. There were only 3 ways to gain complete and utter control of its chakra. They must have hatred in their hearts that's either equal to or greater than the fox's. They must have the full cooperation of the fox. Or they must enter the seal to fight the fox and usurp its chakra to make it their own. Unless they were Uchiha, it would be impossible for them to gain hatred of that intensity. The second option was unavailable because they only had the chakra of the beast, so there was no one they could cooperate with. And the third option was unavailable for a similar reason, as they never usurped the chakra and they couldn't do it without the soul. No one actually knew this, and by the time they did it would already be too late. Anyway, the sisters were watching Naruto with hidden amusement, seeing him sink like that before swimming to the other side and shaking off the water like some dog. Though the positive mood quickly disappeared and was replaced with sadness and guilt. Reason being, the way he looked at them was not that of a loving brother but a person who sees them as nothing more than strangers and even a possible threat. Before they could say anything, he ran off, not even looking back at their hurt expressions. Chan we. I know Narumi, I know. But when we finally get to the academy everything will go back to the way it used to be. Narumi looked hopeful as well as relieved from hearing that. Mito also believed in this, however what she didn't know was that she was simply lying to herself, a lie that will never come true. Today's the day that the Yondaime's children were born as well as the day that the Kyuubi was defeated. As such, despite the losses they suffered, it was a day of joy and celebration. Currently Kushina was at home preparing her children's birthday. She was humming quite happily, thinking about how this birthday was going to be better than the last one. Her musings were cut short when she heard a song playing. It was wonderful, sad and also somehow nostalgic. She wanted to hear more of it. She went outside to follow the song, wanting to find the origin of it, only to be surprised that it was coming from Naruto playing it on a leaf while sitting between Makoto Uchiha and Hinata Hyuga. She chose to hide so she could observe them for reasons unknown to her. She couldn't help but feel jealousy seeing how close her best friend was to her son, though she didn't know why. She also couldn't help but wondered how he became friends with the Hyuga heiress. She wanted to go there and say something, however she couldn't bring herself to do it. The jealousy and the curiosity made her question how Naruto knew those two. Now that she thinks about it, when was the last time she talked to him? Questions started to pile up in her head and her face slowly grew from confusion, bafflement, realization then horror when she came to a final conclusion. Other than his appearance, age and name, she knew absolutely nothing about her son. How? Why? She asked herself. She desperately sought any memory that involved her spending time with her only son, but to her horror she could not find one memory. In all honesty, due to the fact that she was an active kunoichi and because of the damages the Kyuubi had done to the village, she spent a lot of her time on high-ranking missions in order to earn money to help repair the damages done to Konoha. And when she was free from missions she had spent her freedom on focusing her attention on her daughters due to the ever-growing threat of them giving in to the Kyuubi's chakra. With all of that, it was actually no surprise that she had ended up neglecting her only son. She just never thought it was to this extreme. Eventually Naruto finished his song, causing Hinata and Makoto to applaud him, along with a few bystanders who were listening in and had nothing against the poor boy. Kushina wanted to clap as well, but something told her that it would greatly insult him. The bystanders left while the three decided to make small talk. Kushina wasn't able to make out what they were saying, but she was able to hear them make mention of birthday. Just as Hinata and Makoto were about to leave, Makoto stiffened a bit and looked at Kushina's direction. She glared while unknowingly activating her Sharingan, which caught Kushina by surprise. Though there was no hatred, there was deep rage in them, and it lacked the sisterly love that she was so used to seeing from her. Both Hinata and Naruto looked at Makoto in concern and asked her what's wrong. She deactivated her Sharingan and smiled at the children, telling them everything was fine. Eventually Hinata and Makoto left, leaving Naruto alone for now. Just as he was about to leave, Kushina made her presence known. A large naive part of her thought that Naruto would be happy to see her and have love practically envelop his eyes. Except she was wrong, so wrong. There was no love or familiarity, only fear and anger. He was looking at her like a stranger who would not even hesitate to harm him in any way, which hurt her dearly. Before he could leave, Kushina stopped him. Naruto, wait. He stopped in surprise and looked at her in shock and wariness. Have we really interacted that little? She already knew the answer to that. Naruto? She almost called him Sochi, however her danger senses told her that would be a terrible idea. Since I'm free for most of the day and the party doesn't start till 8. Do you perhaps want to hang out at the festival this afternoon, just the two of us? To say that Naruto was shocked would be the understatement of the century. Never had any of his family ever wanted to hang out with him since he was 5. He was extremely conflicted. On one hand, he couldn't forgive them for the neglect and for turning a blind eye on the villagers' hatred of him, yet he was still only a child who so desperately wanted the acceptance of his family, of his mother. Eventually the child side of him won out. When and where? Kushina couldn't stop the smile of happiness from forming on her face. She suddenly grabbed Naruto and hugged him tightly, causing Naruto to freeze up in shock. We'll meet at Ichiraku's ramen at 4 p.m. You won't regret this, Naruto-chan. I promise. She kissed him in the forehead and quickly ran off back to the house to finish up preparations for the party. Naruto was left staring into space, not knowing what to make. However, for the first time ever he felt hope and happiness. What neither of the two knew was this would be the last time they would see each other as true family. Kushina-sama, the Hokage wants to see you. An Anbu appeared in front of her. About what? Kushina was done with the preparations and was getting ready to meet up with Naruto. The Hokage has an emergency mission for you. What? But I'm about to meet up with my son in a few minutes. Isn't there anyone else that could take the mission? I'm sorry Kushina-sama, but there are no available shinobi, kunoichi with high enough skills for this mission. Kushina was conflicted. On one hand she wanted to desperately get to Naruto and reconnect with him, yet on the other hand this could very well jeopardize Konoha's safety if she refused this mission. Maybe if I do this quickly I can meet up with Naruto before he leaves. Even though the mission was seemingly high-ranked, it was thanks to all those missions that she took to repair the village her skills had not deteriorated in the slightest. In fact she was even better than she was before becoming a Jinchuriki due to the fact that most of her power was no longer maintaining the seal. So all in all she is the best of the best and there isn't anyone in the elemental nations, Kage or Jinchuriki, that actually possess a threat to her. Alright, let's go. The two left in a shunshin, Kushina's final thoughts being that of her son. Just hold on Sochi, I'll be back as soon as possible. In her rush to get it over with, she forgot to send someone to tell Naruto that she'll be late for their meeting. If she had known what would have happened, she would have outright refused, but it was too late now. Now that she made her choice, she can never be Naruto's mother ever again. It was 4 p.m. Naruto was at Ichiraku's ramen waiting for Kushina to arrive. Well, hello there, what can I get for you Naruto? Ichiraku Tuchi, one of the few civilians along with her daughter who did not hate Naruto. Hell, he and his daughter practically treat him as if he was part of the family. No thank you, Tuchi-san. I'm just waiting for Ka-san. As such, to pass the time he started a conversation with Tuchi, which later Ayame, Tuchi's daughter, ended up joining. Time was passing by and slowly but surely Naruto's excitement, hope, and happiness slowly drained away. It was now 8 and when Ayame came out she saw Naruto now crying silently. Naruto, honey, I don't think she's coming. The tears seemingly increased despite the fact he made no sound. Just as Ayame was going to comfort him, Naruto got off his seat and started walking away. Tuchi and Ayame could only watch with sadness, knowing that the child was now completely and utterly broken. I should have known. Naruto was back to the compound, though he was no longer crying. His eyes now held a completely empty look to them. Though he was thinking about heading home, he was just walking aimlessly, not really caring which direction he was heading. So deep into his depression that he had not realized that he ended up taking the long way to the compound. Time went by and the festivities had ended with everyone heading home for sleep. Yet despite how late it is, it seems that none of his family noticed that he was missing, which just made the whole thing worse. Eventually Naruto managed to make it to the compound and saw that the lights were off. Naruto sighed and reached for the gate, however there was a sudden large surge of chakra that violently caused Naruto's arm to explode and throw him violently away and into a nearby wall, spraying blood everywhere before landing on the ground almost silently. He was too shocked and too much in pain to let out a sound and his tears had long dried out. He didn't understand how and why this happened. Never before had the compound rejected him, so why now? He then figured out that his parents must have turned on the security seals, which then caused him to reach a realization: they have truly and utterly forgotten him. Help, somebody, anybody, help. No one heard his cries for help. He laid for about a minute, ribs broken, leg fractures, and losing an unhealthy amount of blood from his stump to the point that it created a puddle around him. He knew that he was dying, yet he didn't want to die here near the place of his torment, so with the last bit of his strength he stood up and slowly walked away, leaving a trail of blood for any who wished to follow him. After some time Naruto managed to make it to the park where he first met Hinata and started hanging out with her along with Makoto. Thinking about those two caused him drown further into depression. I'm sorry Hinata. Makoto, looks like we won't be hanging out anymore. Eventually he lost all feeling on his legs and collapsed on the ground. Using his remaining arm he crawled towards the tree that he, Makoto and Hinata usually hung out. Eventually his arm gave out and he couldn't even reach the closest branch. So this is how I die, alone, abandoned, as it has always been. A leaf fell and landed on his lips. Knowing that this was his last night, decided to do what he truly enjoyed to do, to play the leaf whistle. He blew on the leaf, being careful not to blow it away, and it played a soft yet despairing melody. Despite how quiet it seemingly was, the song somehow carried out to the entire Konoha, allowing everyone, awake and asleep, to hear its sad melody. Hokage's office, currently doing some late-night paperwork, as well as waiting for his wife, was the Yondaime Hokage himself, Minato Namikaze. He sighed a bit in tiredness due to the birthday party and how his daughters were disappointed that neither Jiraiya nor Kushina were able to make it to the party, but they were still able to enjoy it all the same due to the presents as well as their friends arriving. However, he was confused that the Hyuga heir and the Uchiha matriarch had spent the remainder of the party seemingly looking for someone while occasionally sending him glares. There was also this nagging feeling at the back of his mind that told him he was forgetting something important yet couldn't figure out what it was. Just as he was about to finish the last of his paperwork, he then heard a sad melody. Curious, he was wondering where it was coming from until he felt something on his cheek. He rubbed it away and realized that it was a tear. A tear? Why am I crying? And what's this feeling? For a reason he couldn't fathom, he was feeling deep regret and loss. Namikaze Uzumaki Compound. Despite sleeping, the song still managed to penetrate the consciousness of Mito and Narumi, which caused them to squirm as nightmares of their brother dying a horrible death, all alone and looking at them with nothing but hatred. No matter how much they squirm, no matter how much they cry out for their brother, all they could do was sleep and cry. Uchiha Compound. Makoto couldn't sleep as the leaf whistle kept her up. She couldn't help but wonder why Naruto was playing his melody this late while drinking a glass of warm milk. Ka-san, are you alright? Makoto looked at her eldest son Itachi, who was looking at her with great concern. I'm fine, Itachi-kun. Why do you ask? Because you are crying. She rubbed her cheeks and was shocked to see that she was indeed crying. Why? Why am I crying? Naruto had played sadder songs than this and it had never brought her to tears before, so why did this one? She suddenly felt very worried for Naruto and made a note to visit the compound as soon as possible. Hyuga Compound. Hinata Hyuga, like the Uzumaki Namikaze siblings, had her conscience invaded by Naruto's song, yet though there were tears, she did not have any nightmares. Rather, they were dreams of her and Naruto growing up together, training together, going on missions together, reaching adulthood, getting married, having kids, becoming old, becoming grandparents before finally dying peacefully together. She was dreaming a life together with her love, and crying for the life that was denied by broken promises. Outskirts of Fire Country. Kushina could be seen running as fast as she can while covered in blood, though none of it hers, all while cursing Kumo for sending a small force of shinobi to scout Konoha illegally, cursing her husband for wasting her time on this easy mission. Well, easy for her. And essentially cursing herself for accepting this mission and essentially missing the birthday of her children. So here she was running as fast as possible, hoping beyond hope that she could at least make it in time to at least say happy birthday to them before they go to sleep, though she knew that was just wishful thinking. Mito, Narumi, Naruto, I hope you three can forgive me. She then stopped as her ears were invaded by a melody coming from a leaf whistle. She looked around the area trying to find the source, all the while keeping her guard up in case it was a trap, though it was seemingly coming from everywhere. Suddenly she felt great despair, regret, and loss, as if something precious was taken away from her, and she will never get it back. Why? Why am I feeling these horrible emotions? Kushina ran as fast as she can, suddenly terrified that something bad had happened, all the while the melody continued to play its sad tune while tears escaped her eyes without her notice. Park. Naruto continued playing his melody. Blood continued to leak out of his stump, and his skin was unhealthily pale as the color was quite literally drained from him. His eyes were getting paler as the life was slowly dimming away. Eventually the song got quieter and quieter, his eyes growing dimmer while tears leaked out of his eyes. So I still had tears left after all. Life finally left him, the night grew quiet, and despite the death that happened there was no one and no thing to mourn for him. Daybreak had arrived and Kushina finally made it back, though right now she was in a bad mood and it didn't help that she didn't get any sleep and was still covered in blood which had dried by now. As such, the gate guards decided to make the right decision and just let her in without interference. With her foul mood as well as being covered in dry up blood, she ended up scaring the crap out of many villagers, which forced her to use one of the public baths to get rid of all the blood. Thankfully she also packed another pair of clothes just in case. She eventually managed to get to the Hokage's office where she proceeded to beat the crap out of Minato, much to his dismay, before giving her report. After that the two left for home, not realizing that they would meet a nasty surprise that would haunt their dreams to come. Hinata was currently walking towards the Namikaze Uzumaki compound, all the while humming that song that played last night while thinking about that dream she had about Naruto. She instantly blushed when she remembered certain scenes that led to her becoming a mother in that dream. Hell, right now she was close to fainting until her thoughts were interrupted. Hinata? Hinata saw Makoto, surprised to see her this soon. Ever since the two befriended Naruto, they ended up becoming friends with each other themselves, due to the fact that the two have quite a lot in common. Makoto-san, what are you doing here? I was going to ask you the same question, however I believe we both know the answer to that. Last night with that sad song did not help calm their nerves at all, as it simply caused them to worry more about the red-haired boy that they gained strong feelings for. Deciding to walk together, the two conversed to distract themselves from this growing pit in their hearts. When they got to the compound, they both activated their respective dojutsu when they noticed a strange surge of chakra around the gates, their eyes telling them that the security seals were still active, meaning that Minato and Kushina were still out and they couldn't get in to check up on Naruto. Makoto sighed in annoyance. Makoto-san, Hinata, what is it? She trailed off when she too noticed it. A crater formed on the wall with all the cracks filled with blood as well as a large puddle of blood on the ground. So surprised by the sight that they didn't even notice Minato and Kushina's presence despite their dojutsu still being active. Hey Makoto, what are you doing here? Makoto seemingly did not hear them as she, along with Hinata, were still staring at the blood. Both finally noticed it, causing Kushina to gasp and Minato's eyes to harden, thinking that an attack had happened near their home. Makoto finally noticed their presence. Hinata, go back home for the day. Makoto-san? Hinata met eyes with Makoto and knew that she had no choice in the matter. Plus some deep emotion inside her told her that she did not want to see the conclusion. Running off back home, Makoto then turned her attention back to Minato and Kushina. She approached them and decided to first ask Kushina. Where is Naruto, Kushina? Naruto? He's inside the compound like he should be, I think. She looked uncertain and turned toward Minato for confirmation, which made him panic because, now that he thinks about it, he didn't remember seeing Naruto at the party at all despite the fact that it was his birthday, which caused him to feel shame for the fact that he forgot about his son. You think? Weren't you with him at the festival last night? She swore to Kami that if she had ditched him, either because of forgetfulness or for something downright stupid, she was going to murder her. No, I wasn't. She looked ashamed. I wanted to, however Minato ended up giving me an S-rank mission at the last minute, so I couldn't even make it my children's birthday party. At the last bit she sent Minato a withering glare which caused him to wince in guilt. However, much to Makoto's confusion, his eyes widened and she saw a look of realization before turning into panic. Kushina dear, did you ever tell Naruto that you weren't going to make it? Or at the very least send someone to tell him you wouldn't be able to make it? Makoto froze when she realized what conclusion Minato came to. Kushina was about to answer but stopped when she thought closely about it. Her expression grew to one of horror. No, I didn't. I thought that I could finish it quickly. That just confirmed their suspicions. Most likely Naruto fell into depression and arrived home after he activated the security seals. Shit, Kushina, Makoto, I want you two to search around the village for Naruto. I'll check the compound for any clues of his whereabouts. He deactivated the seals and rushed inside hoping to find some clues, and possibly see if Naruto was in his room after all, although he knew the chances of him being home were extremely low. Makoto was about to go until she noticed a trail of blood. Kushina, she noticed that her former best friend was still racked with guilt. Kushina snapped out at Makoto, look, as much as I want to slap you for what you done, now is not the time. Right now we need to find Naruto's whereabouts as soon as possible. For all we know he could be hurt badly. Why, you're right Makoto. Good, now follow me. Makoto quickly started following the blood trail with Kushina following close behind. They followed the trail and they soon noticed that the blood was waning, almost as if whoever was spilling blood was running out. Naruto, please be alright, Makoto and Kushina thought. Eventually the trail led them to the park that Naruto, Hinata and Makoto enjoyed going. The trail ended and Makoto and Kushina were met with a sight that will forever haunt their minds. Even more so for Makoto since her Sharingan was still active. Naruto? There, laying in a pool of blood near the tree, was the corpse of Naruto reaching out with his one remaining arm. Naruto. Makoto quickly went over to him and cradled his corpse. She let out a gasp seeing just how badly damaged his body was, as well as letting tears out when she saw the stump where his former arm used to be, no longer bleeding due to the fact that there was no longer any blood in his body. She finally cried when she saw the last expression he had before he died. Hopelessness, despair, betrayal, and finally, acceptance. My baby. I'm so sorry. Makoto cried, holding onto Naruto tightly while telling how sorry she is for not being there at his time of need. Kushina meanwhile collapsed on the ground due to horror and shock. Though she was silent, a great amount of tears poured out of her eyes that were just as much if not more so than Makoto's. I did this. I killed my little baby boy. Makoto, we need to get Sochi. Makoto instantly turned and slapped Kushina hard in the face. If Kushina had paid attention then she would notice that Makoto's Sharingan had changed. Instead of the 3 commas common in a Sharingan there was a circle that resembled 2 serpents devouring each other's tails, and inside the circle was something that resembled a shuriken with 9 sharp points. You don't get to call him that. You don't get to call him your son. You are no mother of his just as I am no friend of yours. Makoto quickly left in a shunsen, hoping beyond hope that there was a chance the head medic Tsunade can save him, while leaving a heartbroken Kushina on her knees knowing this was her fault. At a field full of life there was a man. Long crimson hair, violet eyes glowing with power, 2 cat ears were on top of his head, 9 long cattails flowing behind him, his entire body seemingly enveloped by white flames, and what skin was exposed was covered in black markings, the markings of a sage. He was brimming with power, yet this power was warm, comforting, and filling the area with life. All too soon the vision ended and was replaced by another. The same man yet completely different. His skin was as black as the void of space, his hair as white as volcanic ash, sporting only 2 tails rather than 9, his eyes being crimson surrounded by black pools filled with hatred, and his entire body filled with glowing crimson markings that spoke of wrongness, of an abomination. He was filled with power, yet this power was filled with carnage and destruction. He was a demon in both body and soul. An elder toad woke up from his nap. Those visions he saw greatly disturbed him, made all the more worse since he knew that this was a sign that the current great prophecy had changed completely. This is a problem? Naruto, wake up. Naruto's eyes fluttered open. He slowly got up, groaning a bit due to his body being sore. Wait, sore? Shouldn't I be dead? He examined his body and noted, with embarrassment, that he was as naked as a newborn baby, as well as noticing, with shock, that both his arms were fully intact and that his body lacked any other injuries from his death. I don't understand. How am I still alive? You are not. Startled, Naruto shot up to his feet, vaguely noting that he was in some king of gray void, and spotted the person who spoke to him. The person was definitely female with the looks of a goddess, the largest breasts he's ever seen, and large alluring curves. She was the most beautiful woman he has ever seen that made Tsunade, Makoto and Kushina look plain in comparison. Although she had some inhuman features that scared him a bit, which were the purple skin, the red horns, and the golden eyes with black sclera. Though somehow that just made her more beautiful. Who are you? Where am I? Me? Well, I am known by many names and titles. The Grim Reaper, the Horned God, Karis, Orenes, Lady, Mistress, the Pale Rider, Shinigami. Though I much prefer the name Death. She was surprised when she saw that instead of being frightened he simply looked at her calmly. So if you're Death, then it means I am dead and that this is the afterlife. Yes, you are, though we are at the edge of the afterlife if you want specifics. Naruto was quiet for a bit as he processed everything she said. What now? Under normal circumstances I would take you to Tengoku, however there is a problem. Tell me, have you ever heard of the Great Prophecy? He rose an eyebrow in confusion but nodded his head all the same. He had heard of it before when Jiraiya came home one day and somehow got into a drinking contest with Tsunade. He ended up blurting out a lot of things, with the prophecy being one of them. It got pretty funny until he later confessed that he used to spy on Kushina when she used the public baths and used her image for some of his books. Needless to say, Jiraiya swore never to drink again. Yes, well, no one knows this, but you are the child of prophecy, the one who shall either bring salvation or destruction to the shinobi world. Wait, me? Naruto pointed at himself. Honestly, if anyone was going to be the child of prophecy, he expected it to be one of his sisters. Yes, which presents a problem. Under normal circumstances I would just resurrect you, however in order to do that we would need to form a pact in which if you died before fulfilling your duties as the chosen one you will automatically be sent to Naraka. Naruto winced at that. Considering how neglectful your parents are as well as the fact you live in a world where someone is killed every 24 hours a day, that would make a poor choice. Naruto winced once more knowing that was true. Which leaves another option. Reincarnating into a different world without going to Naraka when you die, though your soul will belong to me. She snapped her finger and two doorways appeared. One showing him currently in the hospital with Tsunade doing everything she can to revive him despite it being too late, and the other showed a white-haired woman, whose looks easily surpassed that of Konoha's three beauties, about to give birth. The choice is all yours, Naruto. Naruto was so tempted to pick door number 1, except, he was afraid. For years he had been neglected, ignored, and treated as an outcast. When his mother finally noticed him, he gave her a chance only for her to throw it away. He was afraid and his trust in his family was completely and utterly broken. Even though he wanted to see Makoto and Hinata again, the risk of being heartbroken by his family was too much. Plus the Shinigami was right that every single day someone gets killed, and with his pathetic skills he was too easy a target. I'm sorry, Hinata. Makoto, I can't go back to that life. Where will I go when I reincarnate? For a brief second he swore he saw her smile before it disappeared. She placed a finger on his forehead and his mind was suddenly assaulted with images. Demons, angels, yukais, dragons, gods, and heroes. Powers that made jutsus look like a joke. Weapons that can practically destroy the world itself. He shook his head and looked at death in amazement. A world where fantasy is real and where there is no limit to what you can do. He felt nervous seeing all those powerful beings that make even the Biju look like a joke, however he already made his choice. He started walking towards door number 2. Will I remember anything from my former life? Only as brief flashes, though if you will truly remember it I cannot say. Naruto nodded his head in acceptance before heading towards his new home and new family. Death watched him go before holding up a red orb. Now it is your turn. Kyuubi. Hospital. Currently Minato, Kushina, and Makoto were outside the operation room. Kushina was crying her eyes out while Minato did everything to comfort her, though he was barely holding it in himself. Makoto was simply glaring at them hatefully. Suddenly a ghosty, demonic-looking woman appeared out of nowhere, shocking the three. She started walking towards the operation room. Hey, you stop. Minato attempted to stop her. Death looked unimpressed and grabbed his arm. Much to everyone's horror his arm started to age rapidly, which later turned to rot. I honestly thought you would have more sense than try and get in my Minato. However, considering the treatment of your son I guess it faded away a long time ago. Minato ignored the feeling of guilt. Who are you? You do not recognize me? For shame, Minato, after all I did to help you and the third Hokage with a certain problem all those years ago. Minato was confused, until he really got a good look of this deadly woman. Purple skin, red horns, white hair and golden eyes, there was really only one being with features like those. Shinigami? Minato said in fear while Kushina and Makoto were now terrified. You know, I honestly thought sparing your life and restoring your wife's life force was a good choice to make. Obviously I made a mistake. Both Minato and Kushina were terrified, thinking that their lives were about to end and leave Mito and Narumi orphans. However, lucky for you I am not here to reap your lives. She let go of his arm, causing its life to be restored. She started walking towards the operation room once more, making everyone realize just who she was after. No. Kushina appeared in front of Death. Please don't take my Sochi. Take my life instead. Strange that you act like this, when for the entirety of his life you left him to his darkness and it was your broken promise that caused his death. Kushina let out a sob at the reminder. Unimpressed she waved her hand and Kushina was sent flying to a wall. Kushina. Minato quickly went to his wife's side to make sure she was alright. She continued on her way but was once again stopped, only this time by Makoto. Please don't take Naruto away from me. I'll do anything for his return. Death looked at Makoto expressionlessly. It no longer matters if I decide to humor your request. What do you mean? Makoto was afraid of the answer. I gave Naruto a choice. To be revived and continue in this world or reincarnate into a different world altogether. He chose the latter. Why? Why didn't he want to come back? Minato asked while supporting Kushina. Is it not obvious? He did not want to experience the pain once more. Minato and Kushina flinched in guilt. Makoto understood. She didn't like the decision he made, but she understood Odd, and if she was in his shoes she would make the same decision. For years the two of them neglected Naruto for your daughters in order for them to control the beast's chakra and allowed the village to vent their hatred on the poor boy. Vent their hatred? What do you mean? With a snap of her fingers she showed them Naruto's feelings and allowed them to feel what he felt. As well, she added information to them about Jinchuriki and Biju to show them how they had essentially wasted all their efforts for nothing. The two collapsed on the ground, overcome by rage, despair and guilt. Please don't take him from us. We promised that we will change, that we'll be the family that he craves for, the family that he needs. Kushina was on her knees and begged death. She simply looked impassively. It is too late, Kushina. Naruto has already moved on to the next world. All that is left is to sever his connection to this world so his soul will not be trapped in limbo. The parents cried, realizing now that they have truly and utterly lost their son. Death snaps her fingers and suddenly their heads were filled with information on a specific seal, a seal that involves dimension hopping. Why did? Do not mistake this as kindness, Yondaime. Naruto has a destiny with this world, and this would prove as a test for him and your family. If I were you I would get started on it right away, as it will take some time to finish. She then turned her attention to Makoto. Naruto apologizes for leaving you and Hinata behind. Makoto smiled, though her eyes were filled with sadness. Death then entered the operation room, Tsunade not stopping her due to hearing everything, and with one look at the body she plunged her scythe into his heart. DXD World, Underworld, Kuroka, a voice called out tiredly, while the cries of a baby could be heard. A 4-year-old girl peeked out the door before entering the room. She was a cute little girl with short black hair and hazel gold eyes with slits for pupils. Oddly enough, she had cat ears and a cattail. She was approaching a woman who was practically an older voluptuous duplicate of Kuroka, only with white hair, ears, and a tail instead. This was Fujimi, the mother of Kuroka, and she had just recently gave birth to twins. Come meet your new siblings, Masumi. Kuroka excitedly ran towards her mother, eager to meet the new additions to the family. She peered at the bundles. They were twins, one a girl and the other a boy, though it was extremely difficult to tell considering they looked identical save for the boy having whisker marks, black hair, ears and tail like Kuroka, while also sporting a certain appendage. Oh, they're so cute, especially this one right here. She started tickling her newborn baby brother, causing him to giggle and her to smile. She would have continued her fun if it weren't for the tiny hands that grabbed her finger. She saw her newborn baby sister holding tightly to her finger, while giving her the evil eye despite her eyes being closed, brought her finger to her mouth and started to chew on it aggressively. Kuroka laughed while Fujimi gigged in amusement. My, she was born just a few seconds ago and already she wants to keep her brother all to herself. The two just continued to stare at her in amusement as she continued her attack on Kuroka's finger. So what names do you plan on giving them, Ka-san? Well, I was planning on letting you name one of them. Really? Kuroka looked excitedly at her mother, who simply nodded. Her eyes then shifted back and forth between the twins before settling on her younger sister. I think I'll call this one Sharon. White sound? Really? Fujimi couldn't help but deadpan at her, though was still amused. What are you going to name this one, Ka-san? Fujimi looked at her firstborn son in thought. Suddenly a name came to mind, one that was at first can be considered odd, yet it strangely suited him. I think I'll name this one Naruto, and thus started Naruto's new life with his new family. Kyoto, Yasaka's palace. A 3-year-old Naruto was laying on the grass on his belly, supposedly sleeping and unaware that someone was currently stalking towards him, moving silently, hiding among the tall grass. A white blur suddenly jumped out of the grass, about to collide with Naruto if he hadn't lazily rolled to the other side, causing the white blur to crash onto the ground quite hard. The white blur stood up, shaking off the dirt and grass, revealing a 3-year-old Sharon who was now glaring at her younger by a minute twin brother quite cutely while puffing her cheeks out. She once again tried to pounce at him only for him to lazily roll away, causing her to crash onto the ground once more. She made another attempt only for him lazily roll away once more. This went on for a while now until he was stopped by a small delicate foot placed on his ribs gently. "That's not nice, teasing your older sister, you know." Despite the scolding, the voice sounded quite amused. Naruto opened his hazel gold eyes in slight panic and looked up to see his older sister Kuroka looking at him teasingly. Despite being only 7 years old, she was already starting to show signs that she was going to have quite a shapely figure when she reaches her teenage years. NYA. Sharon once again pounced, only this time she managed to reach her target. The two rolled around on the grass till they stopped with Sharon on top and pinning him to the ground. "I caught you, Ni-chan." Sharon was smiling happily while Naruto simply grumbled, though he wasn't really annoyed, while Kuroka laughed in amusement. Watching all this was Fujimai, who was smiling at the display of sibling affection. "This reminds me of the good old days, where we were nothing but little kids living in a wondrous fantasy." Fujimai turned to the speaker. "Yasaka, how good to see you, and you as well, Magari." The first was a blonde woman with exotic golden eyes, wearing a white kimono, had long blonde hair, a voluptuous body, fox ears, and 9 foxtails. This was Yasaka, the current ruler of Kyoto and the leader of all yokai. The other woman had a similar body, only with larger breasts. Her hair was a sort of brownish-red color and peculiarly was covered in black spots. She had slitted green eyes, had cat ears, and also sported 9 tails, though unlike Yasaka's they were those of a cat. "And you as well, Fujimai, and I can see your children are quite healthy and happy." Kuroka was now pinching Sharon's cheeks while Naruto simply giggled at them in amusement, at least until Kuroka snagged him with her tail and added him to the pinching fest. "Yes, they are, and lively too." The three were content to watch the three siblings playing around with each other. Though the mood quickly got serious. "Yasaka, Magari, have you been able to find any Nekomata that are still alive?" Yasaka frowned and shook her head negatively. "I found one," Magari said, which shocked Yasaka and caused Fujimai to look at her with a hopeful expression. Except she was raised by witches since her birth and as such has no idea how to use chakra or nature energy, and she simply uses her yoki to amplify her magic. This surprised the two greatly. In truth, it was near impossible for yokai to utilize magic without being reincarnated into a devil. When there was an off chance that a yokai can use mana without outside help, they usually use it increase their chakra and yoki reserves. So to hear the opposite was quite surprising for the two. This Nekomata witch, what's she like? Even if she didn't know how you use chakra or yoki, she was still happy that there was another living cat yokai other than Magari, her, and her family. From what I gathered, she's a witch for hire, as she doesn't want to tie herself to any faction, is considered a master magic user. Very powerful, at least at the level of a high-class devil. She's apparently flirtatious and teasing like most of our kind, and her name is Blair. To Fujimai she sounded like any other cat yokai minus the magic part. Well, at least there's still another one alive, though I had hoped that it would be a male. Yes, as far as anyone knew, Naruto was the only male Nekosho to currently exist. Males of their kind are exceedingly rare to the point that many outside their race think they're just a myth. It didn't help that their kind is also facing extinction. This all means that Naruto is the only hope they have of reviving their race. Well, you can't have everything, so let's just be happy that we managed to find another Nekomata out there. Fujimai sighed and nodded in acceptance. You know, maybe I should take the kids and see her for ourselves. Maybe she can give us pointers about using magic. Yasaka noticed that there was something else that seemed to be bothering her. What's wrong, Fujimai? Quote ellipsis. It's Naruto. What about him? I found out he has the ability to sense negative emotions, without the need of senjutsu. The two looked at her in surprise. This was unheard of. I found out when we ended up in a restaurant owned by a devil. Naruto was able to sense all the lust, greed and hunger coming off of them, and it almost caused him to have a mental breakdown. The two flinched hearing that. Which is why I don't think it's a good idea to teach him senjutsu yet. The three shivered at that. The results would be disastrous. Quote ellipsis. However, that's not all. When I checked his chakra one day, it was chaotic and dark, much like yoki, yet it has a corrosive and hateful feel to it. His yoki in the meantime is so dark that it's almost like Tamamo's. Now to say that shocked them would be an understatement. Tamamo no Mae was once the most powerful yokai as well as the kindest till she was betrayed and gave in to the darkness of her heart and became an Ayakashi. Her rage and hatred became so great that many considered her to be the physical manifestation of hate itself. To hear that Naruto has a similar feel to one of the most powerful Ayakashi in all of history was very unnerving and worrisome. I don't know what to do. I don't want my precious Sochi to turn into an Ayakashi. Yasaka brought Fujimai into a hug. Don't worry Fujimai, he's still young and despite all this I can sense true happiness from him. Naruto was clinging on Kuroka's head while Sharon kept batting at his tail. Besides I doubt with a family like this he will ever give in to this supposed dark power he has inside of him. Fujimai smiled. You're right, thanks Yasaka. Oh if only she knew what will happen to her children. Kuo Town. 2 cats and 2 kittens were walking down an alleyway. The largest was pure white, the second was pure black, while the 2 kittens shared the same coloration as the 2 older cats. Oddly enough the black kitten was currently holding on to the white cat's tail rather than walking itself with the white kitten doing the same with the black cat. If anyone were to come across this they would find the sight quite adorable. The quartet were out of the alleyway before looking around trying to find their next destination. Deciding on going left the 2 continued on, carrying their little passengers which caused a lot of women to coo at the cute sight and for parents to stop their children from cuddling them. After a few blocks they made it the park with the kittens letting go of the adults' tails. The 2 decided to frolic in the grass while the 2 older ones decided to just lay down and sleep. The 2 kittens were exploring around the area as this was the first time they ventured to the human side of the world. Although it was a bit annoying how they had to keep escaping the grasps of eager children. The black kitten stopped when he suddenly stopped, sensing deep sadness. He cocked his head a bit before deciding to follow the source. At the large tree was a small girl with short brown hair crying. The kitten paused as for some reason this scene was eerily familiar to him. The image was then imposed by another one where the brown-haired girl was replaced with another girl, with long crimson hair who was crying even more than the previous one. He shook off the vision and, feeling sympathetic, walked towards her. The little girl kept crying, until she felt something warm and fuzzy rubbing her leg. She wiped the tears away and looked down to see a small black kitten rubbing itself on her leg. Needless to say her sadness was quickly forgotten, at least for the moment. Kitty. She instantly grabbed the black kitten and hugged him with all her might, which wasn't much thankfully. She continued cuddling the black kitten until she heard some angry hissing. Standing in front of her was a white kitten that was hissing at her with so much rage that one would think that somebody stole its toys. Though she did not see that rage, all she saw was another kitten to cuddle. Kitty. All the white kitten could was widen her eyes in realization and horror before she was snagged by the brown-haired girl and snuggled into her chest. The black kitten simply smirked in amusement at its sibling discomfort while the white kitten simply grumbled a bit not having the heart to scratch the happy-go-lucky human girl. The day was spent with the little girl carrying around the kittens and playing around with them. Izan, a woman cried out a name. The little girl perked up. Coming Ka-chan. Running quickly with the kittens in her arms she almost tripped if her mother hadn't caught her. Geez, how many times have I told you not to run when you're carrying something in your arms? Sorry Ka-chan, she chirped happily. The mother sighed knowing she was still going to do it anyway, but was happy to see that she was no longer depressed about her friend moving away. She then noticed the 2 small fuzzy bundles in her daughter's arms. What's this? The 2 fuzzy bundles moved, revealing to her that they were in fact kittens. She almost shouted, "Kawaii," and glomped them herself but managed to compose herself in time. These are my new friends Kuro and Shiro. She couldn't help but deadpan at her daughter. Nay, Ka-chan, can we keep them please? Instantly her expression turned to that of regret. I'm sorry Masumi but we can't. Why not? Well for one thing they might belong to someone else already. Shiro hissed at her in displeasure. And another thing these 2 are only babies which means that their family must be nearby, and we can't afford the room for them. But, Izan tried to argue however her mother was firm in her decision. As the day came to a close, Izan sadly let the 2 kittens out of her arms. Goodbye Shiro, Kuro. She looked quite sad. Kuro looked at her for a moment before rubbing his face on her leg as if reassuring her that they'll meet again which caused Izan to smile a bit. Eventually she went her separate way, not realizing that she will see them once more and will be dragged into a world full of danger and wonder. He didn't know when he found out, just that he did. They were essentially homeless and poor. It was the reason why they kept moving about. Well, that and the fact that cats naturally crave freedom and suffer from wanderlust. Despite all that, Fujimai did her best to raise her 3 children with happiness and love. Even without money or a home, the 4 were quite happy with their life. When he and Sharon were old enough, she taught them about chakra, yoki, and nature energy. Chakra is an energy that's the combination of kai, spirit energy, and ki, physical energy. It essentially has the versatility of kai yet also has the destructive capabilities of ki. Since everyone has a certain amount of kai and ki in them, everyone has chakra, though for some reason only yokai and certain humans called sages could access and use it. It allows the manipulation of the elements themselves, much like kai, can cause unique mutations to the body, and can create seals. However, unlike kai, it is not as easy to manipulate and control, and it is not able to strengthen the user's own body or push it past the limits in the same way ki does. Kai is the spiritual energy that allows the users to manipulate the elements with such ease that it was almost instinctual. It also allows the user to communicate with the dead, if powerful enough, heal all matter of wounds and curses, and allows the user to be more in tune with nature, making it easier to use senjutsu. However, the downside was that it has nowhere near the destructive level of power that ki and chakra has. Ki is the physical energy that allows the users almost complete control over their body. It can form a protective armor-like aura around the body called tuki, can amplify and strengthen one's own power and physical capabilities, and can form destructive blast made out of pure ki. However, unlike kai or ki, it cannot form or manipulate elements, though it is possible to shape ki to resemble an element such as fire or lightning, and is not as versatile as these 2 energies. Yoki is the demonic energy that's exclusive to that of yokais and their kin. It allows yokais to strengthen one's body similar to ki, can cast spells similar to magic, can create illusions, and most of all can create and utilize seals of such great power that some can even affect the very fabric of space and time. However, the energy can be extremely volatile when in contact with chakra, so one must be careful when trying to mix these 2 energies. Though thankfully Nekosho don't have that problem, since even before they're born they unconsciously mix their yoki with their chakra. And since yoki is a dark energy, one can easily go out of control if they're not careful. Nature energy is the lifeblood and emotions of the world itself. Through senjutsu they can absorb it and strengthen, amplify their energies to unbelievable heights, increase their spiritual and physical senses, use it as an extension of their body to create unseen attacks, heal wounds, and can even use it to revive the recently deceased. However, absorbing nature energy also requires the user to absorb the emotions of the planet and every living thing on it, which includes hatred. If not careful, then that hatred will consume the user, turning them into mindless berserkers who will only kill and destroy everything and everyone around them. Fujimai taught them how to access their chakra and to test their elemental affinities. For yokais there are 8 elements that they know of: fire, water, earth, wind, lightning, ice, yin, dark, and yang, light. Yokai can manipulate only a certain number of elements, which is often dictated by what kind of yokai they are. Example being that kitsunes naturally can use fire and wind, though in some cases they can use lightning and even ice, while vampires can naturally use yin due to their more demonic nature. Sharon's elements were fire, earth, and yang. Naruto's elements were fire, wind, lightning, earth, yin and yang. Naruto would later learn that his mother has lightning, fire, earth and ice, while his older sister has lightning, fire, earth, yin and yang. Thankfully his unique chakra did not affect his abilities to use it, at least for the moment. On a side note, Fujimai was quite shocked when she sensed that his chakra reserves were monstrous and can seemingly refill themselves at a rapid pace. With full mastery and experience he may even rival the top 10 strongest beings in existence. Anyway, both Sharon and Naruto managed to get the basics down and were close to reaching Kuroka's level. They had a simple life of training, wondering, and playing. For some reason Naruto always felt that it was too good to be sure. Unknown to everyone save for Fujimai, he used to have a slight fear of sleeping due to, for some reason, believing that everything was just a dream and that if he wakes up everything will disappear. She was quick to reassure him that everything is real and that they would never disappear on him, and don't get him started with the dreams. Dreams where every single human can use chakra, where he's a human himself with red hair and violet eyes, where he's mistreated badly by humans, and where his parents' neglect eventually cause his own death. He once told his mother about them which, though disturbed her, believed them nothing more but simple imaginative dreams. But still he couldn't help but feel that there was something more about these dreams. "Naru-chan, where are you?" His ears perked up when he heard the voice of his beloved mother. Quickly hiding, he waited till his mother was in his striking range. When she arrived to the right position, Naruto leapt. However, Fujimai moved quickly and had Naruto by the nape of neck, stunning him. "Sorry Sochi, but you're too young to get the best out of this cat." She grinned at him while all he could do was pout, making him look all the more cuter in her eyes. "I will get you next time, Ka-chan. Sure you will, Sochi-kun. But for now I believe it's time for your bath." Naruto instantly paled and tried to get out of his mother's grip, all while she walked off with him cackling with sadistic glee. Yep, he wouldn't change it for the world. Underworld, Hell Cavern Tavern. It was quite a rowdy night. Fallen angels, devils, yokai, and all sorts of demonic beasts were getting drunk to the extreme, even more so than usual. Under normal circumstances they would be tearing each other apart, however in this tavern all hostilities were ceased. However, there was one man who wasn't currently engaged at the drunken fun. All he was doing was sitting at the table drinking from his small glass. His features were hidden by a brown cloak save for a crop of silver hair poking out. "Hey, I heard Fujimai's been wandering around with new kits lately." "Really? Same guy?" "Same guy. Shit, she still hasn't realized how much of a douche he is. I think she did figure out, since last I heard he was mauled to death and left in a dumpster. About fucking time. So what are the kits like?" "From what I've seen they're pretty much the same like any other kid, although one of them is a boy." The guy, who coincidentally was a devil and his best drinking buddy being an okami, spat out his drink in shock while the cloaked figure perked up, now interested in their conversation. "A boy? A male nekosho? You're serious? I thought they were a myth or something." "Nope, just incredibly rare, and Fujimai was just lucky to give birth to one." "Damn, should you really be saying all this?" "Oh come, nobody ever comes in here and leaves sober. Once daylight breaks we won't even remember a single fucking word of this conversation." "Good point." Before the two could continue getting drunk they were interrupted by the cloaked man who came over to their table. "Excuse me fellows, I couldn't but overhear your conversation. I believe you made mention of a young male nekosho." The two looked at each other before looking back at him. Under normal circumstances they would be extremely suspicious, however currently their judgment was severely impaired. "What's it to ya?" The cloaked man simply grinned. "Road to Kyoto." Kuroka was carrying her two siblings, in her arms while they slept, and she listened to her mother humming a strange tune. It was beautiful yet sad at the same time. She asked her mother where she heard it, and surprisingly she said she heard from Naruto when he was playing a leaf whistle. However, that was the first and only time he had ever played a leaf whistle. When she asked why, she said that for some reason the leaf whistle made him very sad. Anyway, she was currently enjoying clinging to her younger siblings, though making sure they wouldn't wake up, and skipping circles around her mother. Suddenly Naruto started shaking, causing Kuroka to stop and look at her brother in concern. The shaking simply increased, causing him to accidentally wake up Sharon. Fujimai quickly grabbed him in her arms, trying to calm him down before he finally woke up, jumped out of her arms and was hissing all around him. Kuroka was confused, however she noticed that her mother instantly looked frightened before changing into a hardened look. "Kuroka, get behind me and stay close." Kuroka did what she was told, while grabbing Naruto. "You can come out now, there's no use hiding anymore." Out of the literal shadows popped out 1, 2, 4, 10, 20 men surrounding them, all of them being devils. Outside Fujimai looked calm and collected, however inside was a totally different matter. So many devils, and all of them are at the very least high-class devils. Though she was more powerful than them, her being at ultimate class, individually however as a group, she stood no chance against them. "So these are the nekosho that the boss wanted us to kill? They don't look like much." "I don't know, those two are definitely quite the lookers, that's for sure." "Think we can fool around with them before the slaughter?" Kuroka shivered in fright. Fujimai glared at them with murderous rage as her eyes became slitted. "Ooh, scary." One of them mocked. Knock it off you guys, we just came here to kill them and then get the money. Nothing more and nothing less, so get your head out of the gutter. Aw, can we at least have some fun with bodies before handing them over? Fujimai growled with fury as she leaked out a large amount of killing intent which actually frightened the devils, though she made sure that her children wouldn't be affected by it. If you even think about touching even a single strand of my children's hair, I will rip you all to shreds. Some of the devils actually stepped back in fear before regaining their confidence. Well, it doesn't matter, you'll be dead soon enough. She simply snarled before unsheathing her claws. Kuroka, when I say run, take Naruto and Sharon and run to Kyoto as fast as you can and don't look back. Ka-chan. The three looked at her in shock and were about to protest. Please do not argue this with me. I promise that I will catch up to you three as soon as possible. Naruto instantly struggled, trying to get out of his sister's arms, while Sharon shook in great fear. Kuroka was about to say something, but one look from her mother caused her stop before reluctantly nodding her head in agreement. Fujimai leaned down and kissed the foreheads of each of her children. I love you three, so very much. Kuroka and Sharon looked like they were on the verge of tears while Naruto looked like he was on the verge of having a panic attack. You done there? Because we got to get this done quickly. The mercenaries let them have their moment, not out of kindness but simply because they believed that the small family would not make it at all. Fujimai stood up, her bangs covering her eyes. She instantly used senjutsu to increase her power and prepare herself, and her hands were then covered in fire and lightning. The other devils noticed this and got ready as well. Kuroka, run! With a quick collision of the two elements, the entire area was blanketed by a blinding flash that caused everyone to cry out in pain and cover their eyes. Damn it, everyone search for them, we can't let. He was instantly beheaded before he could finish. I will not let you harm my children. With a swipe of her claws, two more went down in a gory fashion. Despite being off to a good start, she knew that she would not make it out of this alive. Kuroka was running as fast as she could, tears running free from her eyes while clutching her siblings, who were still in cat form, tightly to her chest as if they were her lifeline. Even now, despite the fair distance away, she could hear the sounds of battle. Everything is going to be fine. Ka-chan will win. Ka-chan will come back. She had no idea if she was trying to reassure her siblings or herself. Suddenly Naruto managed to get out of her grip and started running back towards their mother. Naruto, come back. It isn't safe. But he did not listen and continue running with Sharon and Kuroka chasing after them. Fujimai dodged an overhead strike from a massive halberd before punching through the chest and blocking a sword strike with her Tuki-enhanced tail. Before there were 20 of them and now there were only 14. However, she was weakening greatly as they managed to get some powerful blows at her, evident by the fact she was covered in bruises and cuts. She sent out lightning spears that managed to hit some targets but only managed to hinder them before a couple of fireballs managed to land good hits on her, though her Tuki managed to take the worst of the damage. She retaliated by sending ki blasts at them. Damn it, that bastard never said she'd be this powerful. Stop complaining and concentrate on bringing this bitch down. Screw it, I'm going after the kits. That guy was instantly engulfed by white flames before he could even act upon his words. That was another thing. If they tried to go after her kids, her attacks became more ferocious, fast and lethal, making it impossible for them to go after them and forcing them to put all their attention on her. She blocked two sword strikes from their sides before jumping backwards as an earth spear tried to skewer her. She was breathing deeply, her movements were becoming sluggish and barely managed to land a punch at one of her enemies, though she failed to dodge a spear that pierced through her right lung. She threw up some blood and stumbled a bit, causing more spears and swords to pierce her body. She collapsed on one knee, breathing deeply, and could no longer maintain her sage mode. Damn it, damn it, damn it, damn it. She fully expected them to end all this and kill her, or at the very least leave her and go after her children, but instead they spread out and started circling her, mocking her. She gritted her teeth in rage. Don't you dare underestimate me. She charged, and with a swipe of her claws she beheaded another devil. Taking out two swords from her chests, dual-wielding them, and proceeded to wreak havoc upon the mercenaries, completely ignoring her blood loss, till only she and 3 others were all that's left. Forget this shit, the money isn't worth it. The 3 flew off, deciding to abandon the mission. Fujimai stood there for a moment smiling before she collapsed, causing some of the weapons to be pushed further into her body. I did it, I can? She coughed out a copious amount of blood and vomit before her body started to shake uncontrollably. What's happening? I shouldn't. She then noticed that the blades had a greenish tint to them. Her eyes widened in horror when she realized that they were coated in venom, and not just any venom, venom from a hydra. I'm not going to make it. It was a bitter pill to swallow. She was too weak to use her kai to heal herself, and she was too far away from Kyoto to get helped. Ka-chan. She turned her head to see Naruto running towards her, Chiron and Kuroka not that far behind, tears dripping out of his eyes, ignoring all the carnage that was left from her battle. Sochi? Naruto finally reached her, quickly enveloping her in a hug, careful not to touch any of the blades still in her body. Silly boy, I told you to run. Naruto couldn't answer, his body racked in sobs, as he tried desperately to use his kai to heal her to no avail. Kuroka and Chiron arrived, both of them crying at this, while Chiron also tried to use her kai to heal their mother. I couldn't just abandon you, like this. Ka-chan? Naruto spoke between sobs. Fujimai smiled sadly. There is so much that I wanted to say to you three, so much I wanted to do with you. Ka-chan, please. Chiron wanted her to stop talking like that. She turned her gaze to her eldest daughter. Kuroka, promise me that you will take care of your siblings and never leave their side. Kuroka was silent, unlike her siblings, as she knew that her mother was not going to make it, though that did not stop her tears from escaping. Hi Ka-san. Fujimai smiled and turned her attention to her youngest kits, who were still trying desperately heal her. Naruto, Chiron, look out for each other. Help each other through your darkest times, and continue to move forward. Chiron nodded her head in understanding, while Naruto shook his head, trying to deny the fact that his mother was essentially saying her last words to them. Fujimai enveloped the three in a hug. You three will face difficult times? I regret that. I won't be there to support you. She coughed out some more blood, causing her children to hug her tighter. Despite hating that bastard, I don't regret ever having you three. You were best thing that has ever happened to me. She finally let her tears spill out. Just remember that even when I'm gone, I'll always look out for you, and that I love you so very much. We love you too, Ka-chan. The four stayed like this for a while as the sun was about to rise. Naruto could hear his mother's heartbeat as it gradually slowed down. When sun finally rose, her heart stopped beating. The area was filled with the wailing and cries of a heartbroken son. Konoha. 4 years after Naruto's death. It is bright and sunny day, birds chirping, dogs barking, cats sleeping. One would think that this would be a happy day. However, the people were an entirely different story. Since that day all those years ago, the ugliness of Konoha have finally been brought to light, and to say that most of the populace suffered for it would be an understatement. When the exposure of their sins was brought to light, those few who had actually physically abused Naruto were sent to the T&I for some much-needed education. Those who overpriced goods for Naruto were forced to repay the family with twice the amount of money, causing some businesses to close down. Coincidentally, it's because of Minato Cleaning House that he discovered just how lax the school program is to make it more civilian-friendly. The program once more became strict and more suited for those who want to become an actual shinobi. Many civilian students ended up dropping out due to not being able to handle the program, so the amount of students that attend the academy ended up being cut to half. Hinata was surprised when Sakura actually managed to make it quite far, considering how she acted like a stereotypical girly girl. Though it wasn't enough. It had to take the death of her most precious person for the Namikaze family to even do half of what they're doing. For this she will always hate Minato Namikaze and Kushina Uzumaki Namikaze. Naruto's former sisters, however, were an entirely different matter. 11 years old, and Hinata was already showing signs that she would be quite the heartbreaker, as her body already shows signs of maturity that shouldn't be possible for a girl her age, though a lot of it was because of training. She is the third most popular girl in the academy, with Natsumi being second and Mito being third. Not like she even cares about it, as her heart belongs to Naruto. Makoto told her about Naruto being reincarnated into another world and the fact that the Namikaze Uzumaki couple have a means to get to that world. It was why she was training so hard. She had no idea what kinds of beings are at the other side. For all she knows, they could as powerful as the Biju or even more so she had to be ready for anything that world will throw at her. On a side note, this unintentionally made Hiyashi extremely proud of her, but she no longer cared for those things. Though she had no doubt that the Namikaze Uzumaki family will refuse to let her come, not like they had a choice. She sighed a bit. She could honestly thank Makoto for how far she had come, as without her she'd have remained stagnant. Makoto, Hinata winced. That woman went through a lot, especially since her clan is gone and both her sons are dead. She shook away those depressing thoughts. She continued on her way, deciding to pay Makoto a visit, either for more training or for hanging out like old times' sake. Uchiha Clan District. Makoto Uchiha, who somehow managed to keep her youth all those years, was walking down the barren clan streets. If it was anyone else they'd be depressed at the sight, however Makoto actually found it a bit refreshing. Save for herself, her late children and late husband, every other Uchiha were extremely arrogant beyond belief, and to the point that they just plain disgusted her. Though even then it didn't really do nothing to fill the hole in her heart. It was funny really, despite the deaths of her children she had gotten over them quickly. Most likely because, as much as it pains her to admit it, she wasn't really close to any of them since their birth. Since Itachi was a prodigy, he had spent more time training and being the best he could be. He graduated early from the academy, and because of war times he spent more time doing missions than being with his family. Sasuke meanwhile spent more time training due to how the clan, including his father, have too high expectations of him simply because of being Itachi's younger brother. Since these were peaceful times, she had plenty of opportunity to try and bond with her youngest son, yet they were ruined when Sasuke was too focused on trying to surpass his older brother, and it didn't help that Fugaku encouraged his behavior. This was perhaps one of the main reasons why she bonded with Naruto so quickly. In the end, what she truly regretted was that they died before she truly got to know them. She gazed at the roofs and scowled when she saw some Anbu quickly disappearing. Ever since that day she's been confined to the village walls. Makoto, she twitched hearing that person call her name. Kushina, what are you doing here? Unlike Makoto, who seemingly did not age since the incident with Naruto, Kushina looked like she had aged, as the stress lines she has makes her look older than she actually is, while her hair lacks the luster it once had. The relationship they once had all but vanished. Makoto can now say that she completely and utterly despises. Can't a friend come say hello? Makoto actually laughed, though it sounded more like the cackle of a hyena, in amusement, causing Kushina to flinch. Under what circumstances did you get the impressions that we're still friends? Makoto, you know I had no choice. Makoto simply smiled before leaning forward and whispering in her ear. Like you had no choice but to abandon Naruto and leave him to die? She instantly dodged a strike from Kushina, who was now glaring at her furiously. You have no right saying that? Makoto then scowled at her. I have every right. After all, I treated him more like family than you ever did. I mean, how long did it take for all of you to find out what has actually been going on with Naruto? Kushina flinched. Makoto turned her back on her and started walking away. Leave and don't ever approach me again. Eventually she sensed Kushina leaving. I must say you have quite the bite to you, don't you, Black Death? Alarmed, her Sharingan activated, as she turned and got ready for a fight. Crouching down at the rooftops was a man with short black hair, wearing a black cloak with red clouds on it, and had an orange mask with a swirl pattern focused on a single eye hole. At his feet were the dead Anbu, who were watching her on the Hokage's orders. Who are you? Peace, Black Death. He held up his arms. I am no enemy of yours, rather I have a proposition for you if you're willing to hear it. The two stared at each other for a moment. Why would I listen to you anyway? If you do, then I can promise you what you most desire. Justice and vengeance. Training grounds. The sounds fists hitting flesh and the sounds of kicks breaking ground was heard throughout the field. Mito and Narumi had grown since the years had passed, and like their rival Hinata, turned into quite the beauties that very few can actually match. Along with Hinata, they are known as the Ice Queens of the Academy due to their beauty yet coldness to others. The two were getting ready for the time that their parents complete the seal and take them to their brother. They had no idea what will be at the other side, so they must be prepared for anything that world may have. Dodging a punch, Mito let her thoughts wander, which was a big mistake, as she instantly went back to the day that everything went straight to hell for her and her sister. Flashback. 4 years ago. Nei-san, wake up. Mito slowly opened her eyes to see the expression of Naruko. Narumi-chan, what's wrong? Ka-chan and Tu-san are gone and I can't find Ni-chan. Mito slowly stood up looking worried. Have you checked Ni-chan's room? Narumi looked more nervous. No. Then why? We've never once been in Ni-chan's room. Mito looked confused and seemed like she wanted to rebut Narumi's claim, yet when she thought about it, she can't even think of a single circumstance where she would ever go to her brother's room. Oh okay. It deeply disturbed her thinking that. We'll check together. Mito quickly got off of bed and headed towards Naruto's room with Narumi. The two stood in front of his door, hesitant in their approach, the realization of just how separate they are from their dearly loved brother. Instead of going in, they ended up knocking on his door. Ni-chan, are you awake? The two waited for a bit before knocking once more. When there was no response, the two simply stood there, not knowing what to do. Ni-chan, we're coming in. Even as Mito said it, she hesitated while Narumi actually looked fearful. Stealing her resolve, she opened the door to find nothing. Save for a bed, there was literally nothing in the room. No posters, no toys, no books, or any other things that a child his age should have and enjoy. Hell, even the guest room was less barren than this. Mito and Narumi checked the entire room for any clue on their brother's whereabouts. Eventually this turned into trying to find something that could connect them to their brother. Not even picture was there. Neither Mito nor Narumi knew what to do. Almost instinctually they went back to their rooms, something inside their hearts telling them that all they could do was wait for answers. Night came and they sensed their parents coming in, yet there was no Naruto. The two quietly went down the stairs and saw, to their shock, their mother seemingly breaking down and their father doing his best to comfort her, yet also looked like he was on the verge of tears himself. "To-san? Ka-chan?" The two looked up and the two saw the deep sadness and despair in their eyes before they could hide it. "Mito, Narumi, why are you two up at this hour?" They could instantly tell that they wanted to delay the subject. "To-san, Ka-chan, we can't find Ni-chan." Minato widened his eyes before looking away while Kushina looked like she was about to cry once more. We looked in his room, but he wasn't there. The twins felt dread for some reason. Something in them was telling them to go back to their rooms and forget about this whole thing. Where is Ni-chan? As hard as she tried, she couldn't stop the tears from pouring out once more. "Mito, Narumi, your brother isn't here right now," Minato said with a pained voice. Mito was starting to feel afraid when she noticed his tone. Narumi, however, was oblivious. Why? There was an accident. Naruto won't be coming home. Mito was starting to realize what happened. Is he alright? When is he coming home? Narumi sounded extremely worried and concerned. "Narumi, he's not coming back." "Why not?" Minato looked pained and was trying to answer, yet the words won't come out. "Narumi, let's go." Mito didn't want to be here anymore. She didn't want to hear the why, and she most definitely didn't want her sister to hear it. Yet Narumi was every bit as stubborn as her mother and refused to budge, waiting to hear her answer. Minato continued to try to find a way to answer until Kushina spoke up. "Dead." Everyone turned to look at her, the girls seemingly not hearing her. Minato had no idea if Kushina answered out of spite or was too depressed to think about what she was saying. "Your brother, he's dead, and it's all my fault." The tears fell even faster, and she turned away from them, most likely out of shame. "Ka-chan, what's with that horrible joke?" Mito froze. She heard it, yet Narumi didn't believe it at all and didn't seem to take it seriously. Some part of Mito that was still responsive instantly felt hope. Perhaps this was just some sort of trick to punish them for whatever the hell they've done. "If we did something wrong." Narumi looked at Minato. "She's joking, right?" Minato couldn't look at her, causing Narumi falter. "To-san, tell me she's joking." Minato looked back at his daughters, both of them practically begging him to say it was a joke and that Naruto is fine. "I'm sorry, but it's true." Mito and Narumi stared at him stunned. Tears had already leaked out of Narumi's eyes before she collapsed on the ground crying. "Why, you're lying." Mito, however, was in complete denial. "Mito?" Minato tried to approach her, but she backed away and was now glaring at him. "It's bad enough that you two had to treat Ni-chan like some stray animal. Now you want to lie about him dead?" Minato seemed surprised that Mito was fully aware of the neglect when he himself had to be forcibly shown the truth. "Mito, you need to understand." "Shut up," she yelled out, startling everyone. I have enough of this." Her thoughts were running rampant as tears leaked out of her eyes. "Haven't you had enough of torturing him?" Unnoticed by her but noticed by everyone else, crimson chakra started leaking out of her body, Her nails lengthened into claws, her teeth became fangs and her eyes became crimson. Minato was instantly alarmed at this. Mito calmed down. Hearing his voice was the last thing she wanted to hear. With a roar she pounced at him, only to be stopped by Kushina's chains. She tried to break out to no avail until finally the chains managed to seal the chakra away, causing her to faint. Kushina ended up crying once more. Narumi looked frightened beyond belief, and Minato only had a look of despair. Mito had woken up from her near rampage. She automatically thought that she had a simple nightmare. Unfortunately, Narumi was there to confirm that it was all too real. The two had confirmed themselves to Naruto's room, refusing to talk to anyone. They only came out when Naruto's funeral came. They unfortunately got a good look at the state of his corpse, which caused Narumi to break down in tears. What pissed her off and what further saddened Narumi was when some villagers actually had the gall to try and desecrate his grave. They had never seen their father that pissed off before. Though before he could actually act out on his anger, their mother had already sliced their heads off. They started hating the villagers after that. The two had refused to leave Naruto's room for weeks on end. This had forced their parents to tell them about the Shinigami's visit and what she claimed about Naruto's fate. They were still children, and they still wanted their brother back, so they instantly believed them without question. They were curious to find out why their training had suddenly changed. Before it was all about emotional control and drawing out Biju chakra. Now the training was solely focused on fuinjutsu, ninjutsu and other basic shinobi stuff. This had them confused as well as suspicious. Why the complete change in training regime? They snuck around during their free time to find out what was hidden from them. All it took was one hidden conversation to show them everything. They had never looked at their parents the same way again. A kick to the head was enough to snap her out of her memories, as well as knocking her to the ground. "Nei-san, are you alright?" Mito got off the ground, rolling her shoulders a bit before looking at her sister. "I'm fine, Narumi-chan." Narumi looked at her with disbelief. Mito sighed, knowing that Narumi will just pester her for the truth. "I'm just thinking about what happened that started all this." Narumi looked sad in hearing the reminder. "Nei-san, do you really think Oni-chan is still alive?" Mio looked down and thought. Truth be told, she used to have doubts at the status of her brother. At first she thought her parents simply made that up in order to snap them out of her funk. But then she saw how much they were working on the so-called teleportation jutsu, a jutsu that seemingly incorporates the Hiraishin into it. Hell, even Tsunade had once made mention of meeting the Shinigami and hearing the fate of Naruto. She seriously doubted that if it was an elaborate lie or delusion belonging her to parents, she would entertain it if it wasn't real. But still, if Naruto is living in another world, would he still be alive? Yes. Narumi looked happy at her answer. "Alright, well, let's go, Nei-san. I believe we deserve a little break." She pulled her older sister along, heading towards Ichiraku's for some ramen. In the end, it didn't matter. All that matters was that she will still see him. She will get to confess her feelings to him. Tell him how much she misses him. Tell him how sorry she is for causing so much pain to him. Namikaze Uzumaki compound, living room. Jiraiya couldn't help but sigh as he was taking a break yet watching his student working on that seal. Honestly, when he heard about the death of his only godson, well, shock would be the understatement of the century. At first he was greatly angered at them for circumstance that caused Naruto's death. But in all honesty, he had no right. After all, he barely spends any time with his godchildren, plus with the amount of he had in the past, he most likely has an army of bastard children. He was too much of a coward to find out. If Minato can be considered a crappy father, then he was beyond crappy. He shook off his depressing thoughts. "Hey kid, don't you think you should take a break?" Minato ignored his sensei, still focusing on finishing the seal. "Minato." He stopped. It was actually quite rare for his sensei to ever call him by his name. It was usually kid or brat. He turned to look at sensei, who was looking at him with a pitying look. "I can't stop, sensei. I need to finish this." "Minato, I know how important this is to you and your family, but even you have limits to how much work you can do." He stood up and placed a hand on his. "Come on, you need some rest." Minato tried to shake his hand off, but Jiraiya is right. He does have his limits and he has already reached them. Letting Jiraiya guide him to bed, his thoughts were only on finishing the seal and fixing the mistakes of his past. Kushina Uzumaki was looking at the family photo album. The years have not been kind to her. However, in all honesty, she has no one to blame but herself. After all, what kind of mother was she to neglect her only son, to break a promise that meant so much to him, to ultimately be the one to kill him? What's worse, after her daughters found out the reason for his neglect, the reason for his death. Well, needless to say, them having nothing but distrust for them would be an understatement. In fact, if they hadn't reassured them, she would have thought they hated her and Minato. As she looked at each photo, at first the first few photos showed a complete happy family, with Mito and Narumi clinging to their brother's arms. However, as she kept turning the pages, the photos showed Naruto becoming sadder and sadder, fading at each picture until eventually he no longer appeared on the photos, hiding behind his family, while the rest remained oblivious. Those photos she ripped apart. The birthday photos at first seemed good, except now it was painfully obvious just how fake his smile is. She couldn't bear ripping those pictures since they were the only ones that actually had him smile. She eventually tossed the album away, not being able to look at her mistakes any longer. At the corner of her eye she noticed something sticking out of the drawer. As she took out, she saw that it was an unfinished teal and cyan striped scarf with thread tassels. Tears spilled out of her eyes. When she was pregnant all those years ago, they were only expecting Naruto. As such, she wanted to make a special gift for him. When they found out she was pregnant with triplets, she was so happy that she forgot to finish the scarf. By the time she remembered it, she was too busy training her daughters and going on missions to even finish it. The tears stopped and she suddenly got a look of determination. She took out her knitting kit and got to work. Even if Naruto hates her, she can at least give him this, his supposed first birthday gift. DxD World. 7 months. It's been 7 months since that horrible day. They had managed to make it to Kyoto, where due to all the trauma they had faced ended up collapsing in front of Yasaka's palace. When they had woke up, Yasaka had asked them what happened. Needless to say, she was quite furious the fate of Fujimai at the hands of Devil. She had been quick to comfort them and apologize for bringing up that horrible event and not being able to rescue their mother. She had of course offered to adopt them. It will be a while before he finds out that Yasaka is their godmother, but the three had refused. It was too painful to stick around, too many memories. The three had left, preferring so as not to face Yasaka. They have been traveling since, except without their mother there wasn't the usual happiness to it. Oni-chan, he shifted his body a bit, careful not to wake Kuroka, to look at Sharon. Look what I made. She held up her hand to show him a white rose. It looked real and yet at the same time, like it was just a mirage. He realized that the flower is a chakra construct. Quote ellipsis. It's beautiful. Sharon smiled at his compliment. Take it, it's for you. Naruto accepted the gift. As his hand made contact with the flower, it became brighter, purer. But why? To show you, my love. Naruto smiled. Love you to Sharon. Of course there will come a time where that love meant something else. Suddenly Kuroka grabbed onto Naruto and smothered him into her ever-growing bosom. Ah, Naru-chan, right there. The twins were too young to understand what their older sister was dreaming about, yet Naruto instinctively felt embarrassed while Sharon felt great anger and jealousy. She cuddled closer to her brother and tried to pull him away from their older sister. Baka one sama. Yep, despite the tragedy, something's just stay the same. Well, time to get up, sleepy heads. Naruto and Sharon woke up from their pleasant sleep. Kuroka was at the river, her tail in the water while a large pile of fish was next to her. She pulled out her tail, revealing another fish before placing it the pile. Kuroka turned and smiled at them. So who's hungry? 26 minutes later, the trio of cats were eating freshly baked fish with smiles on their face. Kuroka stared happily at her two little siblings eating the fish. These two, they're the only remaining family she has left. If they were to die, she may become an Ayakashi. I promise Ka-chan that I will take care of them, even if it means my death. My, aren't you three an interesting group? Kuroka instantly jumped in front of her siblings, protectively hissing at the person that snuck up on them. The person in question is a young man, though it was a bit hard due to the lower half of his face being covered by mask shaped like a jawbone, with curly blue hair and silver eyes. The only clothing he seemed to have were tattered cloaks that left his torso bare, showing his lean yet muscular frame. He could have passed as an oddly dressed human if it weren't for the black sclera, or the incredibly dark aura surrounding him. Oni-chan, that's... Yes, he's a devil. They can easily recognize that aura. After all, The ones who killed their mother had the same type as well. What do you want, devil? Geez, no need to act so hostile. He raised up his hands in surrender. I was just curious on what some young kittens were doing all the way in my territory is all. Territory? Kuroka paled as she realized the implications. I messed up. I am very sorry, we didn't know. The demon looked amused at the change of attitude. We'll just be leaving, mister, and you won't be seeing us again. She quickly grabbed onto her siblings and was about to take off until the devil suddenly appeared in front of them. What's the rush? It's not every day I get to see some rare nekosho wandering around my territory. Kuroka froze in shock. The devil, he somehow knows what they are. She then took notice of her younger brother shaking in fear of this dark being. Unknown to the devil, Naruto was able to sense his emotions, and it would be an understatement to say that they're not good. I would very much love to just let you three go, except you trespassed in my domain. I can't very well let that go unpunished. Though his mask covered it, Kuroka could tell he was enjoying their fear. What do you want, mister? Darius Naberius is my name, little kitten. And I feel like I deserve a sense of justice is all. He slowly approached them, causing them to back away. Though I am fair devil, and as such I am willing to negotiate if you three come with me. He held out his hand expectantly. Oni-sama, don't. Sharon didn't want Kuroka to accept his offer and to just run away. Except this wasn't an offer, this was a threat. She also knew that this devil would be able to catch them easily if she were to run, and the consequence will not be pleasant. Okay, we'll go, just don't hurt them. You have my word, Nekosho. She took his hand as the four were then teleported to the underworld. Underworld. Naberius family estate. Both Sharon and Naruto had no idea how much time has passed. The room they were staying was quite expensive looking, and the bed was large and comfortable. Unfortunately, the two were too nervous and scared, knowing their life was held by a thread. They hear the door open and Kuroka came in having a neutral look. Oni-chan, Sama. The two got off the bed and hugged her with all their might. Kuroka smiled and hugged them back, although the smile was sad. Oni-chan, what's going to happen to us? Kuroka looked down at them. You don't have to worry. He won't harm us, but I'm afraid we won't be traveling for some time. Though disappointed hearing that, they mostly cared about the fact nothing bad will happen. Although Naruto picked up on something. He can sense a lot of negative emotions in her, mostly shame and despair. He then got a whiff of her scent. The usual scent of grass and sweetness, however it was underlined with the smell of sulfur. Sharon had also noticed the smell. Oni-sama. Why do you smell like a devil? Kuroka looked pained and the sense of shame grew even larger. Oni-sama, what did you do? She couldn't bear to look at them any longer and turned away in shame. Sharon let go of her and took a step back. For a while Kuroka refused to answer. Then she decided to show them. At first they thought it was shadows behind her back, but to their horror it wasn't. It was wings of a devil. Naruto let go of her in shock. Oni-chan, why? Tears slipped out of her eyes, the shame being too much. She finally decided to look at them. I am still the same, I am still your big sister. She reassured them, though it sounded more like she was trying to reassure herself. She tried to reach out for Sharon only for to back away in fear. Kuroka looked devastated at this. She tried to reach out to Naruto. He flinched but didn't back away. When he felt her hands on his cheeks, he can still feel the warmness, the love, the comfort that he always feels when near his big sister. The fear was gone and he placed a hand over hers. Seeing the acceptance from her brother, she could no longer contain her emotions, and clung to him like a lifeline, tears running rampant. Naruto hugged her back. Sharon, seeing this, felt guilt at her reaction to her own sister and embraced her as well. Kuroka gladly welcomed her to the embrace. In truth, this was only the beginning of their suffering. 4 years later, it was cold, damp, and dark. An older Naruto was currently keeping his sister warm. The two were at a cell at a prison. They were barely fed anything. They were given no comfort except from each other. They had no idea how long they've been here. Only that it feels like years. Why? Why did this happen? Oni-chan. Sharon looked at him. Why did Oni-sama leave us? Golden eyes filled with wrath and hatred, fangs filled with blood. I don't know. He didn't have an answer. Will she come back? Naruto stiffened. He couldn't answer. Every time he tried it felt like he would lose himself. Sharon instantly noticed his tears and hugged him tightly, trying to comfort him. Though unfortunately it didn't stop his despair. The two heard movement before their cell opened, revealing a very worried Yasaka. Naruto. Sharon. She quickly grabbed those two in a hug. Oba-san? When I heard what happened to you two, I did everything I could to regain your freedom. What she said was a bit of an understatement. She had actually threatened to ban every devil from entering Kyoto and threatened to go to war if they do anything to harm her grandchildren. Of course, the argument took a while since the devils wanted to negotiate a way that would also benefit them. They're devils, what did you expect? In truth, the four devil kings would have gladly just let the two go, except the elders would have bitched about it and may even start a civil war. After a lengthy argument they managed to come to an agreement. Something that, though Yasaka detested, it was the best she could do. So these are the two that the council has made such a fuss about. A crimson-haired man with blue-green eyes came into view. Naruto stiffened, while Sharon hissed furiously. The man is a devil and is one of the four devil kings known as Seer's Lucifer. Oddly enough, Naruto could sense sadness and pity from the devil, which made him relax a bit, although Sharon still looked like she was getting to go on a rampage. Though that would fail epically, as Naruto could sense the amounts of power emitting from the Devil King that made his mother's and Yasaka's look small in comparison. My name is Seer's Lucifer, little ones, and I wished we had met under better circumstances. He approached only to receive a glare from Yasaka and a hiss from the siblings. Though Naruto sensed no ill intent, the man is still a devil. Seer's simply frowned sadly at this. Honestly, it would be a very long time before yokais and devils could trust each other again. I hope this plan works. Yasaka got up while carrying the twins in her arms. Let's get this over with. The two then teleported out of the prison and into one of the Gremory estates, standing in front of a room. Oba-san, why are we here? Yasaka winced. She put the two down. Sharon, Naruto. To tell the truth, there were some conditions that needed to be fulfilled before I could free you from that prison. Conditions that I wished could have been different. She explained the deal that she made with the devil faction. A plan that if it worked it could unite the devil and yokai race into a unified peaceful faction. Except of course, this would require sacrifices from the two siblings. What is she? Sharon asked, flabbergasted. The two were staring at a crimson-haired girl about 10 who was staring at them in amazement. In truth, it wasn't really the girl herself that got an interesting reaction from them, rather it was the contents of her room. Walls covered in posters of anime, shelves filled with manga and light novels, desks filled with figurines. The only thing normal about the room was the large flat-screen TV. Whoa, so, you two are actual Nekomata? The two nodded as they wiggled their ears and tails for emphasis. Wow, that's so cool. She circled the two in wonder. This is the first time I have ever seen Nekomata before. Before the two could react, they were suddenly glommed by her. And you two are just so cute. Sharon weakly struggled, though she didn't much effort to it, as she was able to see the pure innocence in the devil child and didn't have the heart to harm her. Naruto meanwhile simply just sighed in tiredness and acceptance. Oh sorry, I forgot to introduce myself. She dropped them on the ground. My name is Rias Gremory, heiress of the noble house of Gremory. Naruto. Sharon. Rias looked at them confused. You two don't have a last name? The twins shook their heads. Teju. You two will now be Sharon Teju and Naruto Teju. Sharon tilted her head a bit before accepting the name. Naruto was a bit miffed out how easily she named them, but quickly got over it. This was the start of their new life, and perhaps even the start of healing this broken family. Two young twins were currently sleeping on the same bed. One was a white-haired girl with cat ears and a cat tail, while the other a black-haired boy. Though it was a bit hard to tell since he resembles so much like his twin, who also has cat ears and a cat tail. It would have been adorable to look at, except the way the white-haired twin held her brother in quite an intimate way. The sun shone through their window, hitting her face. She opened her eyes, revealing to be hazel, and smiled at the sleeping face of her brother. Brother, it's time to wake up. Her brother slowly opened his eyes and smiled at his sister. Good morning, sister. The twins got off the bed and stretched in a very cat-like fashion. The two put on their uniforms before going to the bathroom to brush their teeth together. They were both lightly moving to sounds of imaginary music. The male twin was the one who made their breakfast. After all, it was just the two of them that lived in this apartment. Plus turns out he has a knack for household chores. More so than his twin sister, much to her shame as she wanted to be the one to provide for her brother. The two ate their breakfast in comfortable silence. Naruto Teju and Sharon Teju, twin Nekosho siblings, reincarnated devils, albeit temporarily, and the rooks of their master Rias Gremory. It's been a while since the two were forcibly thrusted into this situation. 15 years old, and the two have been through a lot, more than anything a child or adult should necessarily go through. Death of a parent, held hostage, abandoned by their only remaining family, and finally becoming slaves to the devil race. It was nothing short of a miracle that the two didn't break and become psychopaths with hatred for the entire world. Though it was probably thanks to Rias Gremory they didn't wind up that way. Unlike most of the devils, Rias is kind, forgiving, and sees everyone in her peerage as family. She never once treated them as servants. Hell, she tends to have the habit of spoiling them a bit. It was probably intentional that the devils set the twins up with Rias Gremory so as not to shift the young Neko's opinion to a more negative light than it already is. The two suspect that this was the case, however, they no longer cared about that. She tore down their barriers, and as such they will stay by her side through hell back even when they get their freedom back. But still, there are just some things that even she couldn't help with. Ah, so many wonderful girls. Yet not a single desirable guy in this school. Izan Hyodo, one of Kuo Academy's main beauties with a voluptuous body that only Kuo's two great ladies could surpass. With long luscious brown hair that reached her knees and honey-colored eyes, she would have been one of the most desirable girls in the school except for one thing, her nature. See, she is a massive pervert. Because of that, guys at the beginning would go after her for a date thinking she would be an easy target, only to end up either crying or having their pride broken so thoroughly they end up shadows of their former selves. See, despite being perverted, she actually has high standards for what she wants in a guy. Standards that almost every male in the school fails to meet. For those of the same, her standards are more flexible, so to say, so she's often a menace to the female student population. Doesn't help that nearly 100% of the female student population are beauties of their own right. She heard screaming before watching the perverted duo being chased by the kendo team. She smiled at the sight. The sight of the perverted duo about to get their just desserts, and the sight of her favorite people about to deliver said justice on the perverts. Despite being perverts, and despite Izan being considered a hottie, she has quite an antagonistic relationship with the perverted duo. Well, not so much as antagonistic as she simply enjoys trolling them and breaking their pride into a million pieces. Well, that's enough to bring a smile on this day. Another thing caught her eyes, and she saw the Teju twins had arrived. Well, there is one desirable guy here at this school. You know, it wouldn't hurt you to ask him out at least once, you know. Someone suddenly popped out next to her, but Izan expected it. You should also know that it's not as simple as that. Aika Kiryu, a bespectacled young girl with a slim body, gold-colored eyes, and lightly messy brunette hair tied into braids on each side. She is the best friend of Izan Hyodo, mostly due to having a similar personality and similar interests. Though nowhere near as beautiful as Izan or the top 5 beauties of Kuo Academy, she's still quite a looker, and combined with her seductions she can quite easily get a boyfriend, or even a girlfriend, anytime she wants. She just happens to enjoy the single lifestyle for the moment. What's so hard about it? All you have to do is go right up to him, ask him for a date, and the worst that can happen is him saying no. Really? She gave her friend an unamused stare. I'm pretty sure the worst thing that'll happen to me is getting the crap beaten out of me by the school's mascot. Yeah, it was a pretty known fact that Sharon was a bit possessive of her male twin. Actually, that would be a massive understatement, since the last time a girl was brave enough to try to ask Naruto out, she was sent to the nurse's office courtesy of being scratched by an angry cat. Even now the two can see Sharon glaring at them, when she noticed their attention on her brother, harsh enough to send a shiver down their spine and turn away. Yeah, I can see your point. Izan sighed. Worst of all, I can't even stay mad at such a cute little thing. Ah, what a conundrum. She pouted at the unfairness of it all. Well, you can always try seducing the sister first? Really? She gave Aika a skeptical look. Well, why not? She's less likely to mangle you if you ask her out instead. The worst would most likely be a rejection. If you succeed, you'll basically get 2 for the price for 1. Izan gave some thought to what her friend just said. You know, that's actually not a bad idea. She can just imagine it now, her going on a date with Sharon, her brother joining in, then. Her thoughts were now entering some R-rated territory judging from her glazed look and perverse giggling. Sharon shivered. "What's wrong?" Naruto asked in concern. "I feel like our chastity is in danger." He rose an eyebrow in confusion. "Well, anyway, we should be heading to class or else we'll get a scolding from the student council president." Right. The thought of a scolding from her was enough to bring her out of her perverted fantasies. After all, a scolding from Suna Shitori was one of the worst punishments you could get. The two quickly ran off to class, unaware that one of them caught the attention of a certain devil. Orc Club Room. Within the former schoolhouse were the twins eating their snacks and their master Rias Gremory. The years were definitely kind to her as she grew up to be an extremely beautiful young woman with a buxom figure. Many perverts would say that her large breasts were the most striking thing about her, while others would say it would be her long crimson hair. Because of her appearance, she is ranked as the #1 beauty of Kuo Academy. It wasn't just her appearance that grew, but so did her maturity and personality, to the point that she has a sort of big sister vibe to her. Although she still has cases of immaturity and pride from her childhood, though arguably that might just be her devil nature coming out to play. She is still an otaku, that hasn't changed. As well, she has managed to get even closer to the twins, although her relationship with Naruto, well, let's just say she seeks to have a closer relationship with him than the one they currently have, and leave it at that. Rias was looking out the window, watching Izan, and smiling in amusement as the pervert and accomplice were playing with their fellow female classmates and breaking apart male pride. Though, despite how much she enjoys the usual entertainment, that wasn't the reason why she was watching Izan Hyodo. Rather, what caught her attention was the fact she sensed something from her. A hidden power, so to say, though she wouldn't say it was magic or a bloodline, as she could sense enough that Izan is lacking on that part. No, rather the energy is one from. Someone came into the club room. "Akeno, can you tell me anything about Izan Hyodo?" Akeno Himejima is a beautiful young woman with a voluptuous figure, breasts even bigger than Rias, very long black hair and violet eyes. Her hair is tied in a long ponytail, reaching all the way down to her legs with two strands sticking out from the top and sloping backward, with an orange ribbon keeping it in place. From her body just to her movements, everything about her is sensual in nature. She is the vice president of the Occult Research Club, ORC, one of Kuo Academy's two great ladies, a title she shares with Rias, and the queen of Rias Gremory. Other than her being a second-year student, a well-known pervert and breaker of men's pride, there really isn't anything I can say that you do not already know. Even her voice has a sensual tone to it. Really? Nothing that we may have overlooked? Nothing at all. As far as her records say, she is a completely ordinary human, with the looks and personality of a succubus. She said the last part in amusement. I cannot tell whether I should be amazed or horrified that you devils can gain so much information on the human race without even trying. Naruto blankly stated. Oh? Akeno looked at Naruto with a smile that sent him on edge before walking over to him with a seductive sway of her hips. Before the twins could react, she already sat next to Naruto and hugged him to her ample bosom. Why does it bother you? Are you afraid we might use our talents to find out any secrets of yours? Maybe some hidden perversions? Naruto glared lightly at her with annoyance, though he did blush a bit. After all, he is still a guy, despite appearances. However, he was struggling to get out of her grip, which was impossible since she is a queen piece and as such has physical strength near equal to him and Sharon. Akeno is the second servant that Rias gained, however the two hit it off quite well. The two became more like sisters than anything else, although she has the unfortunate habit of teasing and flirting with Naruto, which Rias and Sharon were glaring at Akeno, more so the latter, who even had her cat features out and was hissing at her. Yes, the queen and the rook have a very odd relationship. Anyway, Rias grabbed her peerage's attention. Akeno, the reason why I asked you this should be obvious to everyone in this room. The three nodded in agreement. Like their king, they also sensed a sort of hidden power inside her. You think she has a sacred gear? Akeno asked. It's too faint to tell, which is why I need you two to get close to her to get a better sense of her power. Rias said the last part to the twins. After all, despite some complications with their abilities, they are still the best sensors around. Sharon looked annoyed at the orders, as that will mean exposing her brother to another woman vying for his affections. Do you want us to befriend her or something? Naruto asked curiously. It doesn't matter how you do it, though I would prefer if you made an effort to avoid hurting her in any form. Hey, she may be a devil but she is a good person at heart. Hi. The two nodded in agreement. Alright, well, see ya. Izan waved her best friend goodbye before heading home. So how should I go about it? She was walking peacefully home while thinking up of a way to introduce herself to Sharon. After all, she can't just come up to her and ask her out on a date right out of the blue. Hey, she may be a pervert but she's not an idiot. Sharon's duality may be a problem but hey, like that's actually going to stop her. Of course, what she didn't realize was that her plans on getting closer to the twins would go about much easier than she expected and that she wouldn't have to go after them one at a time. Excuse me? Someone came up to her. It was a beautiful girl with a slender body and a large bust. Her attire is a school uniform, which consisted of a dark red jacket with the letter P embroidered in gold, a white undershirt, a red bow, and a green skirt with a thin white strip around the lower end of it. Well, hello, and who are you? Sorry, I'm a bit new around here. My name is Yuma Amano, and I just recently moved here. If it's not too much trouble, do you mind if you show me around town? I want to get the layout around here before I start school and you seem trustworthy. Izan examined the girl now named Yuma closely. So far she's liking what she sees. She may not match the two great ladies of Kuo Academy, but she definitely is way above average in the looks department. Yuma, though unsure, felt Isane's gaze was less than innocent and so fidgeted a bit and blushed. Sure, why not? Although, can it be tomorrow? It is getting kinda late, you know. Yuma smiled at her request being accepted. Yes, that's fine with me. Thank you. Before she left, she quickly asked, oh, I almost forgot, what's your name? Izan Hyodo, and I hope to get to know you better. The two smiled before waving goodbye. Man, this the best. I got a date with a hottie. It may not be Naruto but I'll take what I can get. What the two didn't notice was that they were being watched by the twins this entire time. The two were snacking on some popsicles watching the two heading back to their respective homes. Despite looking relaxed and laid back, they were anything but that. Though they couldn't get a clear sense Isane's hidden power, they were able to a clear sense of Yuma's energy. Brother, yes sister, this has become much more complicated. Are you sure about this? The twins went back to report what they saw. Hi, the fallen angels took notice of Izan Hyodo's hidden power as well. Whether they have good intentions or not, I don't know. Both Rias and Sharon looked at Naruto for his input. Unlike Sharon, he can also sense negative emotions and intentions of others, which lets him know when someone has ill feelings towards them. Despite her outward appearance, she holds nothing good for Izan. Yet neither does she seem to hold any negative intentions towards her either. So she is basically a scout. She stated rather than asked. Yet Naruto nodded his head yes in confirmation. This makes things more complicated for us. She looked at a chessboard with all the chess pieces. Bucko, though we did not get close enough, we were able to get a more accurate sense of Isane's power. It has a dragon-like aura to it. Rias looked surprised at this. Then that could mean that she has a dragon-type sacred gear, or she has some sort of dragon lineage that has just recently started to emerge. Despite her ancestry showing no sign of inhuman blood, there is a possibility of her ancestors breeding with something inhuman so far back that it was almost impossible to find any recorded cases. See, on occasions there are times where half-breeds or full supernatural beings would randomly pop up from human parents with no history of inhuman blood. That was because at some point their ancestors bred with the supernatural beings. The half-breed offspring were more likely to breed with humans, and as years and generations pass by, the blood becomes diluted to the point it seemingly ends up erased. Yet the genes are still technically there, and all it takes is certain conditions for that blood to reawaken, and when that happens the resulting offspring become half-breeds or full-on supernatural beings. A case of that has happened before. More specifically, the Jersey Devil incident, where an ordinary human woman gave birth to a pure-blooded devil despite her and the father being humans. Turns out the mother's ancestors bred with devils. What do we do now? She examined her chessboard once more before answering. For now, continue to observe Izan Hyodo. We need to know what plans Grigori has for her and whether this will affect us in any matter. She moved a pawn piece forward. We may have to do something drastic in the near future. The pawn landed on its spot. Unlike the rest of the chess pieces that were either black or white, this one was pure crimson.